Chapter 378. As night fell, as the temperature dropped, the fog gradually appeared and became thicker and thicker. Bathed in the thick fog of the night, the entire hidden mist village seemed exceptionally quiet. There were almost no pedestrians on the street, and all the shops were closed. Even the lights were very rare. Only a few occasional barks of dogs and the painful groans of the street beggars due to hunger made the hidden mist village seem a little bit livelier. Suddenly, on the quiet street, a dark shadow appeared. These dark shadows were like ghosts, quietly passing through the thick fog, not even the slightest sound of the wind breaking. It could be seen that these people were all ninjas who were proficient in the hidden mist assassination technique. Not long after, a mournful cry came from the direction of the Mizukage building. This cry that pierced the silence of the night seemed to be the beginning of the turmoil, followed by a burst of roars, curses, and the sharp and harsh alarm sounded in the hidden mist village. It finally started. Hearing these noises, many people in the hidden mist village with evil intentions flashed in their minds at the same time. At this time, Hyojin in a house also opened the curtain. 1 spot, 2 spots, 3 spots, 4 spots. There are a total of 4 battlefields. Because he used the fire release clone, Hyojin couldn't see through the thick fog outside the window without Byakugan, but he could roughly judge the situation outside by the sound of the battle. The battle outside broke out almost at the same time. There were a total of 4 fighting points all around the Mizukage building. There were also vague battles in other areas of the hidden mist village, but those battles were either people looting the shops or deliberately provoked by the rebels to contain the Umbu of the Mist Village who were still loyal to the 4 generations Mizukage, so that they couldn't support the Mizukage building in time. It's time. Muttering to himself, Kuroto's figure flickered and disappeared in place. And the owner of this house turned a deaf ear to Hyojin, who broke into his house, as if he didn't notice. After Hyojin left, he slowly recovered, and when he heard the sound of fighting outside, he immediately hid in the corner and trembled. This kind of turmoil often happened in the hidden mist village, and the residents could only grit their teeth and bear it. In the underground palace of the Mizukage building, the dried persimmon ghost mermaid pushed open a stone door and glanced at the chamber behind the door. When he saw 2 figures standing quietly in the chamber, his face sank, and he calmly walked in. At this moment, the 2 people in the secret room turned to the ghost shark and mermaid who walked in as well. But soon, they both withdrew their gazes and remained silent. The secret room returned to silence. Leaning against the wall, the ghost shark felt a bit uncomfortable. This kind of uneasiness came from the oppressive feeling that the other 2 people in the secret room gave him. Ghost Shark thought that there weren't many ninjas in the Mist Village who could give him a sense of oppression, so he couldn't help but guess the identities of the 2 people in front of him. From the hair ornaments, is it from the Splendor Knight clan? Didn't their clan go extinct? I can't tell the other guy's identity, but I always feel like I'm being seen through when I'm in front of him. Is it my illusion? Because the 2 people in front of him were both dressed like the Umbu of the Mist Village and were wearing masks. Even though the Ghost Shark was very knowledgeable, he still couldn't guess their real identities. While the Ghost Mermaid was pondering, a series of footsteps came from deep inside the secret chamber. Not long after that, a thin and small figure showed up in the secret room. Mizukage-sama. The 3 people, including the Ghost Shark, bowed to the thin and small figure at the same time. The thin and small figure in the secret room was none other than 4 generations Mizukage Goji Yagura, who hadn't shown up in the village for a long time. He glanced at the 3 people in front of him with a dull look, then fixed his eyes on one of them, and said coldly without any emotion, "Hey, next time, I'll dig your red eyes out myself." The Umbu of the Mist Village, named Hei, pulled out his long sword and yelled, "You're not 4 generations." Hei was the only ninja left in the Mist Village from the Red Eyes clan, who had inherited the pupil technique of the Mist Village. Because the Red Eyes clan had also participated in the rebellion caused by the Kekiai Shinobi clan, although Hei didn't participate in the rebellion, he was still affected. He had to hide his identity and join the Umbu, becoming an ordinary member of the Umbu. Just now, When he saw 4 generations Mizukage, he unconsciously activated his red eyes and found that 4 generations' head was filled with other people's chakra. This was obviously a phenomenon that could only happen when someone was controlled by an illusion. With Haziel, the ghost shark, and the other ninja were also on guard. Hey! At this moment, a light laugh came from behind 4 generations Mizukage. Then, a figure wearing a swirl mask walked out from behind 4 generations Mizukage. Hey asked, "Did you control 4 generations Mizukage with an illusion?" Obsidian, who was playing with the Mizukage, shrugged, then spread his hands and laughed. "I knew I couldn't hide it from you. What a pair of annoying eyes. Akatsuki? So 4 generations Mizukage has been controlled by you since long ago." Seeing Obsidian, who was wearing a red cloud suit, the ghost shark was suddenly enlightened, and all his previous guesses were confirmed. Obsidian didn't deny it. Instead, he threw the documents to the ground and said blandly, "Hey, if it weren't for me, you would have been executed by the Umbu long ago as a surviving member of the Red Eyes clan. Ghost Shark, Watermelon Mountain Pufferfish tried to kill you several times, but I stopped him. Lotus, if it weren't for me saving you from the prison, I'm afraid even your bones would have been rotten by now." Picking up all kinds of documents issued by the village, the Ghost Shark and the other ninjas' expressions changed. After struggling for a while, Bai dropped his hand that was holding the sword and asked, "What do you want?" Lotus also looked at Obsidian, with expectation and vigilance in her eyes. The Ghost Shark grinned like a shark and said, "You called us here in the name of 4 generations clan. You didn't want to kill us, did you?" "Of course." Pausing for a second, Obsidian continued, "You are all abandoned by the village, staying in this dark village. Sooner or later, you will be cleaned out like garbage. Why don't you choose another way to live?" I was confused. "You want us to join the Akatsuki?" Obsidian smiled and said, "That's right." Bai and Lotus glanced at each other, then nodded together. As the remaining members of the Konoha and Kagaya clans who participated in the rebellion, Bai and Lotus have no place to stay in the Mist Village, so they don't have much loyalty to the Mist Village. Coupled with the fact that the Akatsuki clan became famous after the war, defeating the joint attack of Mai, Cloud Village, and San Crypsis Village, joining such a powerful organization is equivalent to a rebirth for them. The Ghost Shark has long been tired of the endless killing of the Mist Village, so after thinking for a while, he also agreed to Obsidian's proposal. "I'm glad that you all made the right decision." These 3 ninja were all selected by Obsidian after many rounds of selection, so Obsidian had already expected their decision. At this time, the Ghost Shark asked, "What about the rebellion outside?" "It's just a farce. When the time is right, you can go and end this farce. But remember, don't kill him before you kill him." The masked man curled his lips in disdain. "It's just a farce." Bai asked, "Why don't you kill him? Do you want to recruit him into the organization?" Obsidian smiled and said, "Amatsukami has no interest in him. We just want to keep him alive to discuss those old guys in the village. Don't you think that's a good thing?" Zabuza belongs to the kind of people whose ambition exceeds strength. Obsidian has no interest in this kind of people. In fact, in the Mist Village, the only one that Obsidian is optimistic about is the Ghost Shark. As for Bai and Kagaya, if it weren't for the threat that Amatsukami poses to Obsidian, he wouldn't have recruited them into the organization, because their minds are unpredictable, untrustworthy, and difficult to control. Listening to Obsidian's words, Bai and Lotus both grinned. Although the Mist Elders who had suppressed the rebellion of the Bloodline Inheritance families had suffered heavy casualties, there were still a few who survived. As the surviving members of the Bloodline Inheritance families, the two of them naturally didn't have a good attitude toward these old guys. Ghost Shark asked, "What about the shark muscle on his hand?" Obsidian didn't care and said, "If you can get it, the shark muscle is yours." Ghost Shark smiled and didn't say anything else. At the same time, Hyojin, who was controlling the fire release clone, went around the battle outside the Mizukage building and quietly sneaked into the building. As soon as a Mist ninja opened his mouth, Hyojin's short knife in his hand stabbed into the ninja's chest, stopping the ninja's shout before it could spread out. Pulling out the short knife, Hyojin shook off the bloodstains on the knife and thought to himself, "The internal defense is so weak, it's like a child's play." He sneaked all the way, but only met 3 mist ninjas, and they were all ordinary Chunin ninjas, which was really incredible. After identifying the direction, Hyojin came to the southwest side of the Mizuki's building and thought to himself, "Where is the entrance?" According to the information sent back by the spy, the secret technique archives and collections of the Mist Village were all in the underground palace under the Mizuki's building, and the entrance to the underground palace was in the area where Hyojin was at the moment. But the village's spy in the Mist Village couldn't find out exactly where it was. After activating the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, Hyojin carefully observed the surroundings. Although the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan didn't have the ability to see through things like Byakugan, but its insight was better than Byakugan, so after some observation, Hyojin immediately found a hidden door. Opening the secret door and entering the underground palace, Hyojin searched along the area with dense sealing techniques according to his own experience, and soon found a place that seemed to be the secret technique archives or collections. 2 squads, 8 ninjas, hiding in the corner. Hyojin locked the position of the 8 guards and immediately walked out slowly. "Oh, stop!" Looking at Hyojin, who suddenly walked out, the 8 guards were alert, but seeing that there was only one person, and he was dressed as a mist ninja, the guards didn't rush to attack, but spread out and surrounded Hyojin in the center. Seeing Hyojin not saying a word, the leading guard said fiercely, "Who the hell are you? Why are you here? You'd better answer honestly, otherwise I don't mind letting you taste the torture of our blood mist village." The corner of Hyojin's mouth raised, and the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan in his eye sockets slowly rotated. In an instant, a golden phantom was projected from Hyojin's body, and in the blink of an eye, the golden phantom turned into a giant with 2 golden swords in his hands. Looking at the sudden appearance of the golden giant, the 8 guards fell into a short period of sluggishness. Before they could come back to their senses, the golden giant, holding the 2 golden flaming swords, had brutally slashed them into pieces of flesh and blood in an instant. After dealing with the guards at the door, Hyojin's eyes fell on the secret vault in front of him. The door of this secret vault was flashing with the brilliance of a sealing technique at this time. Obviously, it was engraved with a very high-level sealing technique by the Mist, and Hyojin knew nothing about this kind of sealing technique. It was impossible to remove this sealing technique by normal means, so he activated Susanoo and prepared to break it by force. As for the guards just now, it was just a matter of convenience. Boom! With a bang, under the attack of Hyojin's Susanoo golden sword, the shining sealing technique only resisted for less than 3 seconds, and then completely collapsed, and the door of the secret vault also collapsed. Hyojin put away the Susanoo and walked into the secret vault. After looking around, Hyojin said with a little disappointment, "Is this the collection?" As one of the 5 great shinobi villages, it stands to reason that the Kiri village's treasury should have many treasures. But considering that the Mizuki has been reduced to a plaything of the Obito, even if there were any treasures in the treasury, it would have already been looted by the Obito. Therefore, compared to the collection, Hyojin wanted to loot the secret technique archive of the Mist Village more. But since he had already come in, Hyojin naturally wanted to take a good look around. In the Mist Village's collection, the most collections were swords and swords. Rows of display shelves were filled with all kinds of swords and ninja tools, but they were not treasures, and they were far worse than Hyojin's own Kusanagi sword. Soon, Hyojin came to a display shelf deep in the collection. His eyes focused and murmured, "The Mist 7 Ninja sword," at the other end of the underground palace. When Hyojin used the Susanoo to cut the door of the collection, Obsidian, who felt the slight tremor of the ground, frowned and thought, "Someone broke into the underground palace?" Although there was a fierce battle outside, the underground palace was full of all kinds of sealing techniques, and the tremor of the ground could not be transmitted to the depths of the underground palace, so it could only be that a battle had also broken out inside the underground palace. With a thought, he stepped into the whirlpool and disappeared from where he stood. A moment later, a vortex suddenly appeared in the collection, and Obsidian walked out of the vortex and stared at Hyojin, who was looking at a display shelf. Looking at Hyojin, who was dressed as a ninja and wearing the Mist Umbu mask, Obsidian was a little puzzled and thought, "Who is this woman? Is she on the Mist Elder's side, or a spy from another village?" Thinking of this, Obsidian reached out to Hyojin's back. Chapter 379. The display shelf in front of Hyojin was very exquisite, and there were even carvings on the edges. Just by looking at the display shelf, one could tell that it was a rare work of art. There are 7 grooves of different shapes on the shelf, and with just a glance, Suijin recognized that these 7 grooves correspond to the 7 swords of the Mist Village that resounded throughout the shinobi world. However, only the leftmost groove on the shelf contained the double blade flounder. As for the other 6 grooves, they were all empty. Hyojin supported his chin with one hand and pondered, "The beheading blade is in the hands of Bipod Juzo, and the mermaid muscle was left outside of the Hidden Rain Village. I don't know who got it. The Thunderblade should be in the hands of the Black Ho Thunderfawn. What about the Needle, Flying Foam, and Dukkha? Were they lost, or were they taken away by Obsidian?" The 7 swords of the Mist Village were passed down from generation to generation. But because of the last ninja war, the 7 swords of the Mist Village encountered Metkai's father and suffered heavy casualties under the 8 inner hidden gates. Coupled with the continuous turmoil of the Mist Village, the inheritance was broken. The current Mist Village couldn't even spare the manpower to pursue the traitor's Jinchuriki, so naturally, they didn't have the energy to recover the 7 swords. At this moment, Hyojin's body suddenly trembled, and an inexplicable tearing force came from behind. Kamui! In an instant, Hyojin's heart trembled, but then he found that his body had a strange numbness, and even his thoughts were slightly interrupted. This, the unique pupil technique of Obsidian's Manjikyu Sharingan Kami, is a kind of time and space ninjutsu that can directly distort space. It is different from ordinary ninjutsu. At the moment when the target is hit, whether it is the body or the soul, because of the distortion of space, there will be a feeling of being separated from reality, as if being hit by a body-fixing technique. This is the situation Hyojin was in at this time. This is why many people who were hit by this technique were easily dealt with by Obsidian without any resistance. Because under the sudden attack, anyone would panic, and under the dual effects of panic and this sense of sluggishness, the victim will inevitably have a short period of absent-mindedness, and it is this short period of absent-mindedness that causes them to miss the last chance to escape. Therefore, to seize the last chance to escape, 2 things must be met. The first is to remain calm and to maintain a calm state of mind. The second is to master a no-second ninjutsu, that can either teleport or threaten the Obito. When Yandame Hokage was hit, he used the space-time ninjutsu Flying Thunder God Jutsu to get rid of the Kami of Obito, so the Kami of Obito is not invincible. After collecting all kinds of scattered thoughts, the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan in Hyojin's eye sockets began to spin rapidly. Although Hyojin couldn't resist the Kamui's attack, his body was stripped of time and space, and he couldn't freely form hand seals or perform any ninjutsu that required hand seals. But there are some pupil techniques that don't require hand seals. Susanoo, a brilliant golden shadow, was instantly projected from Hyojin's body. This time, the shadow seemed to skip the process of bones, tendons, and even muscles appearing layer by layer. Under the control of the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan in Hyojin's eye sockets, and in the case of abandoning part of the body structure, the golden shadow instantly transformed into a thick arm holding a sword and slashed at the Obsidian who attacked Hyojin. The golden light suddenly appeared, and the Obsidian was taken aback. Initially, Kuroto thought that it would be an easy sneak attack, but he didn't expect such a turn of events to occur. Even Obito, who is used to seeing storms, couldn't help but be taken aback, not to mention that his arm that was pressing on Kuroto's back is currently in the Kamui space. And while dragging the target into the Kamui space, Obito himself is also in a physical state that can be attacked. Swish, the golden sword slashed down, and immediately a flower of blood rose. Amidst the splattering blood, Baitu clutched his left arm that was severed from the shoulder in a sorry state. He hastily canceled his divine might and retreated abruptly. At this time, Hyegen slowly turned around, and his eyes stayed on the broken arm on the ground for a moment, and then immediately moved to the obsidian not far away. At the same time, the Susanoo on his body was also constantly improving. From the previous arm, it gradually expanded into a complete half-body giant, firmly protecting him inside. Susanoo, the obsidian's face was a little embarrassed. "Are you a member of Uchiha?" The obsidian didn't expect that the girl in front of him, dressed as a ninja, was actually a member of Uchiha who had Manjikyu Sharingan and could activate Susanoo. Hyegen didn't answer, but he was a little relieved in his heart. "Phew, that was close." The obsidian, who recovered from the surprise, suddenly frowned and said, "No, you are Homusubi of Amatsukami." The Manjikyu Sharingan was not something that could be found on the street, so it was impossible for one to appear out of nowhere. So the obsidian quickly equated the person in front of him with Homusubi of Amatsukami. After all, in the obsidian's view, Homusubi of Amatsukami is the only person who has Manjikyu Sharingan that he doesn't know the identity of. "Humph!" Hyegen instinctively snorted, but because she was controlling the fire clone, the girl's voice was a little crisp, so it didn't express his annoyance very well. Instead, it had a hint of provocation. "I didn't expect Homusubi to be a woman." After a pause, Obsidian chuckled and said, "Very well. Since you have delivered yourself to me, then I will accept your Manjikyu Sharingan." Naturally, Obsidian will not miss such an opportunity. For him, the Manjikyu Sharingan is secondary. He is more interested in digging out information about Amatsukami from Homusubi. Hyegen casually kicked the broken arm of Obsidian and said lightly, "Can you do it?" Obsidian twisted his neck and said, "You will know soon." As soon as his voice fell, Obsidian's figure flickered, and his speed was so fast that it left an afterimage, and he rushed straight toward Hyegen. Hyegen didn't dare to be careless, and quickly lowered his center of gravity, and the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan in his eye sockets also fully activated, capturing every move of Obsidian. Although Kurodo knows the details of Obsidian's Kamui, and also roughly what trump cards Obsidian has, any small mistake can lead to a fiasco against a strong person of Obsidian's level. What's more, he is not sure whether Obsidian is the only one in the underground palace or not. If all the members of Akatsuki are here, then he will be in big trouble, so he doesn't dare to be careless. Obsidian's speed is extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye, he rushed in front of Hyegen, but due to Hyegen's constant movement, he couldn't find any flaws in Hyegen's defense, so he had to go through Hyegen's body. After passing through each other, the two turned around at the same time and confronted each other again. Hyegen's face was calm, and thought to himself, "I must lure him to attack. Only then can I hurt him." Chapter 380. He didn't move at all just now. Did he see through the details of my Kamui? Or did he get some information about me from Konoha? Sure enough, the battle outside the Hidden Rain village leaked too much information. While Hyegen was thinking about countermeasures, Obsidian was also secretly thinking. Obsidian is very clear about his own advantages, so he has been paying attention to protecting his own information. But because the previous situation was too critical, he had to personally resist the 3 generations Naruto. In the face of the 3 generations Naruto, Obsidian had to use his Kamui and would release Blood Limit. Although he successfully blocked the 3 generations Naruto and killed many of Mai's elite Umbu, the leakage of his own information was inevitable. The two sides probing did not yield any results, so the two confronted each other again. Both of them were wearing masks, so they couldn't see each other's expressions, but from the subtle parts of their bodies, both sides keenly captured each other's vigilance and caution. And Hyegen, who was aware of this, immediately understood. Oh, so cautious? It seems that he doesn't have any strong reinforcements nearby. At least Nagato should not be in the Mist Village. If Nagato was nearby, Obsidian wouldn't need to be so cautious. He could directly call Nagato, and Hyegen would have no choice but to flee. Obsidian also raised the corner of his mouth. Hey, even if you know the ability of my Kimui, how long can your Manjikyu Sharingan support Susanoo? As the successor of Uchiha Madara, Obsidian has a far better understanding of Manjikyu Sharingan than Fuyue, the patriarch of the Uchiha clan, so he knows very well that although ordinary Manjikyu Sharingan can use Susanoo, it can't be maintained for a long time, otherwise it will overdraw the pupil power, causing the rapid decline of one's vision. Only by transplanting the Hashirama cells, or fusing with a Manjikyu Sharingan to become the Eternal Eyes, can one be qualified to use Susanoo as a regular pupil technique. The two of them faced each other in silence in the huge and hidden mist warehouse. They analyzed the enemy's weakness while planning their own tactics. Neither of them made a sound, maintaining their silence tacitly. It was as if they only had each other as prey in their eyes, and nothing else mattered. After a while, Hyojin decided on a strategy. Without hesitation, he launched an attack. Boom, boom, boom. As Hyojin launched an attack with Susanoo, the Golden Giant immediately raged in the warehouse. Every time the Golden Giant waved its arm, every time it slashed, it would cause a series of rumbles, messing up the rows of shelves in the storage room. Swords and daggers fell to the ground with clanking sounds. Fool, let's vent as much as we want. In the face of Suijin's, Susanoo's rampage, the masked man was playing with a sneer in his mind while dodging in embarrassment. In order to make Shinichi more embarrassed and make Hyojin consume more pupil power, from time to time, he would use the scattered swords on the ground and throw them at Hyojin, who was protected by Susanoo, provoking Hyojin to attack him. Clang clang. Although the sword in the warehouse were rare sharp weapons, they couldn't do anything to Hyojin Susanoo. No matter what strength Obsidian used, from what angle he threw, the final result was a sharp collision sound of sharp weapons, and he couldn't hurt Hyojin and the Susanoo at all. Tisk, do you only know how to dodge like this? Hyojin spat lightly, deliberately showing a bit of exasperation in his tone. At the same time, he deliberately didn't breathe out, but his chest was moving up and down. Under the mask, Obsidian stared at Hyojin's chest that was moving up and down, the corner of his mouth slightly raised, and he said to himself, "Hey, you're already panting? It's hard to continue your pupil power, right? That's not how you use Susanoo." Hyojin slowed down the attack frequency of Susanoo at the right time and chased Obsidian in the warehouse that had become a ruin, and his mouth gradually appeared to be panting. Hugh, how long are you going to run? At this time, Obsidian stopped running, turned around, and walked toward Hyojin, and said in a tone full of superiority, "How much pupil power do you have left? Is your vision starting to blur?" Hyojin staggered slightly and said in surprise, "How do you know so much about Manjikyu Sharingan?" Obsidian was still approaching Hyojin, and his tone was getting lighter. "Young Uchiha, your talent surprised me. It's not common for a woman to open Manjikyu Sharingan, and it's at your age." Hyojin said angrily, "Do you think you've won?" Obsidian clenched his fist with his remaining right hand. "Isn't it? Go to hell." Under Hyojin's control, the Golden Giant immediately waved the golden sword at Obsidian. However, this time, not only did Obito not dodge, he didn't even activate the Kimui Tokukomi. Instead, a lot of thick and sturdy trees extended from his body and intertwined with each other. As if two giant arms of trees had transformed from trees, the arms of Susanoo were greeted by the sword-wielding arms of Hyuga Susanoo. In an instant, the Susanoo and the wooden golem entangled with each other, and like wrestling, the two of them began to wrestle. "Ah!" With a light shout, Hyojin put his palms together as if he was driving the pupil power of Manjikyu Sharingan with all his strength. Obsidian's face also became less relaxed, and he mobilized the chakra in his body to maintain the wood release. This stalemate lasted for less than 3 minutes. The situation gradually began to tilt in favor of Obsidian's wooden man. Hyojin Susanoo was gradually suppressed, and even the Golden Giant's shadow dimmed a lot. At this time, Obsidian said, "Do you know the last time a Sharingan fought with wood release? It was the Sharingan that lost." Hyojin gritted his teeth. "I won't lose." You being able to maintain Susanoo to this point is a little beyond my expectations. After a pause, Obsidian continued lightly. But it's over. As if to confirm Obsidian's declaration, as soon as his voice fell, the wooden man tore Hyjin's Susanoo, and a big crack appeared on the golden giant's chest. Obsidian walked slowly into the crack and said with a smile, "You can still maintain it? Is your man GQ Sharingan's pupil technique related to Susanoo?" Looking at Obsidian invading the interior of Susanoo, Hyjin wanted to kneel on one knee and show his physical weakness, but after thinking about it, he felt that it was too deliberate, so he just took a slight step back and then pulled out a kunai from the storage bag on his waist and shot at Obsidian. Just like during the battle between the Brothers of Time and Space, Sasuke was facing Itachi, who was approaching step by step, making a seemingly meaningless struggle. Chapter 381. One after another, kunai and shurikens passed through Obsidian's body without causing any ripples. The Obsidian who was walking towards him was like a ghost. Although it was futile, Hyjin did not stop and continued to throw. Obsidian smiled and said, "Why can't you accept your failure with dignity? If you are willing to tell me the information about Amatsukami, I can consider sparing your life." Hyjin said coldly, "In your dreams." Very stubborn. After snorting lightly, Obsidian stretched out his only right hand and slowly reached toward Hyjin. Hyjin did not suppress his body's instinct to fight back. He directly waved the kunai in his hand and slashed towards Obsidian's right hand. Swoosh! The sound of wind breaking rang out, but the slash was still fruitless. It passed through Obsidian's body and did not cause any damage to Obsidian. At this time, Obsidian stretched out his right hand and grabbed Hyjin's wrist. In an instant, a vine extended from Obsidian's body and extended all the way to Hyjin's body through their hands. Then it quickly became thicker and stronger. The vine that was originally as thick as a finger became as thick as a tree trunk that was as thick as an arm, tightly wrapping around Hyjin's body from top to bottom. After using wood release to control Hyjin's body, Obsidian released his right hand that was grabbing Hyjin's wrist. Then, he gently patted Hyjin's shoulder and activated Holy Might while saying, "It's over." As Obsidian activated Holy Might, a spatial distortion point suddenly appeared on Hyjin's shoulder. This distortion point was like a vortex that sucked in everything around it, causing Hyjin's body to distort. The strange numbness of being stripped of reality once again filled Hyjin's body. But this time he was prepared. The moment Obsidian activated Holy Might, his closed eyes suddenly opened. Amagami Iwado. In an instant, the Amagami Iwado in Hyjin's right eye was activated, and a faint fluorescent halo appeared on his body. With the activation of Amagami Iwado, although Obsidian's wood release was still wrapped around Hyjin's body, making him unable to move, the suppression effect of wood release had completely disappeared. Susanoo. After getting rid of the hindrance of wood release on his chakra, Hyjin immediately activated the ocular technique in his left eye. Roar! When the ocular technique Susanoo, which had the ability to strengthen Susanoo, was activated, the golden giant who was suppressed by the wooden puppet suddenly let out a terrifying roar. In this roar, the golden giant's body shone brightly again. At the same time, an armor made of golden flames covered the golden giant's body. Moreover, the golden giant, who originally only had 2 arms, unexpectedly extended an arm from each of his ribs. Previously, he only had 2 arms holding the sword, but now he had 4 arms holding the sword. Boom! Accompanied by a loud noise, the golden giant easily tore apart Obsidian's wooden puppet without the slightest hindrance. Originally, Hyjin deliberately showed weakness before. Even if he did not activate Susanoo, he was not afraid of Obsidian's wooden puppet with the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan Susanoo. At this time, his Susanoo had the buff of the ocular technique Susanoo, and its power was close to the complete form of Susanoo. Naturally, it easily tore apart Obsidian's wooden puppet. How is this possible? The sudden reversal of the situation made Obito, who thought he had the victory in his grasp, pale with fright. Looking at the flying sawdust, he was dumbfounded. All of Hyojin's previous performance was for this moment. He resisted the numbness of Kamui stripping his body and urged Susanoo to slash at Obsidian with all his strength. The golden giant sword coming towards him and the Kamui attack that was about to be completed caused Obsidian to fall into a short period of hesitation. Immediately, Obsidian gritted his teeth. Fight! He was confident that in less than a second, he would be able to completely complete the attack and drag Hyojin into his Kamui space. And as long as Hyojin was dragged into the Kamui space, Susanoo, which had lost the support of Hyojin's pupil power, would disappear in an instant, and the golden giant sword that was about to fall would also collapse. Time seemed to freeze at this moment. Hyojin continuously injected his eternal Manjikyu Sharingan's pupil power into his right eye and urged Amanawato with all his strength. Although Amanawato could not resist the space-time stripping of Obsidian's Kamui, but it could delay the time of Kamui stripping the space-time stripping. At the same time, Obito also desperately launched the Kamui space, trying to drag Suijin into the Kamui space before the golden greatsword above his head could land on him. A contest of pupil power between Sharingan and Sharingan. In this short moment, fiercely burst out. Got it! Both of them shouted this sentence almost at the same time. The only difference was that after shouting this sentence, Hyojin had a triumphant smile on his face, while Obsidian had a look of surprise on his face. Because just when Hyojin's whole body was about to be completely dragged into the Kamui space, the fluorescence of Amanawato suddenly bloomed, causing Kamui to appear a little slow. Precisely because of this, a trace of surprise flashed on Obsidian's face. Boom! However, before the surprise on Obsidian's face could be completely swept away, his whole body was completely swallowed by the golden giant sword. With the support of Susanoo's full power attack, let alone Obito, even a first generation with a sage's body would die without a doubt if they were to take it head-on. Therefore, the Obito was directly reduced to ashes, and even with the inside of the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, he couldn't find any trace of the Obito. But Hyojin didn't relax his vigilance. He tore off the withered tree trunk that bound him, raised his hand, and quickly made a hand seal, and shouted, "Flame release! Flame dragon burst!" One after another, golden flame dragons spurted out from Hyojin's mouth, galloping in the Mist Village's collection room. These dazzling golden flame dragons seemed to be alive, searching for enemies everywhere, and sprinkling the golden flames on their bodies all over the collection room. So, in just a few short breaths, the collection room was a sea of fire. Under the burning of the golden flames, all the display racks turned into billowing smoke, and some of the weaker weapons were also burned out of shape, turning into a mass of molten iron. Standing amidst the sea of fire, Kuroto's eyes were constantly scanning around. He was sure that the attack just now killed Obsidian, but for Uchiha's people who had mastered the Izanagi forbidden technique, a single kill didn't mean much. So after he succeeded, he immediately used the ninjutsu flame release, turning the entire collection room into a sea of fire. Chapter 382. The dazzling golden flames lit up the gloomy underground palace vault. At this time, most of the weapons in the vault had turned into crimson molten iron, casually flowing on the floor that was reinforced by the sealing technique. A small number of sharp weapons that were made of tough materials were warped and deformed by the golden flames, losing their original sharpness. It was only a matter of time before they turned into molten iron. Only a small number of treasures were able to maintain their original appearance under the golden flames, but no one could estimate how long they could last under the scorching heat of the golden flames. Hyojin's expression was solemn as he strolled in the sea of fire. The hairband that bound his hair had broken at some point. His black hair, which should have been tied into a ponytail, was fluttering in the wind under the waves of heat caused by the golden flames. The incomparably hot golden flames that could instantly melt a sharp weapon forged from fine steel into molten iron couldn't hurt Kuroto at all. Even his hair that was fluttering in the wind wasn't affected in the slightest. The golden flames that engulfed everything were like obedient golden flowers around him. Bathing in the sea of fire, he was like a god, calmly and indifferently looking around, as if he was looking down at his own divine kingdom. Where will he be resurrected? Because he hadn't mastered the forbidden technique, Izanagi, Hyojin's understanding of Izanagi came from the impression he had in his previous life. He knew that Izanagi could turn all factors that were unfavorable to him into illusions, replacing reality with reality. It was a miraculous eye technique that could use illusions to change reality. This kind of pupillary technique involves the rewriting of fate, and before he has mastered it, there is no way for him to analyze the principle of its activation. So he can only design his own tactics based on his impression of the battles where this pupillary technique has been used. In the original time and space, there were actually many people who used the forbidden technique of Izanagi. Madara, Obsidian, Danzo, and some of the Uchiha people in history had used it, but among them, Danzo, who was not of the Uchiha people, used it most frequently. According to the battle between Danzo and Sasuke, Hyojin analyzed that if Obsidian used Izanagi to change fate, he would probably be resurrected somewhere nearby like Danzo. And this was the reason why Hyojin used Flame Release to turn the entire collection into a sea of fire. Once Obsidian resurrected in this collection, he could use Flame Release to instantly hurt the newly resurrected Obsidian and create a second opportunity to kill Obsidian. However, a few minutes passed, and there was no sign of Obsidian resurrecting in the collection. Did he not use Izanagi? This thought flashed in Hyojin's mind, but he quickly denied it because he knew that Obsidian had a chance to use Izanagi before he was killed. Hyojin's face sank, and he curled his lips. Humph! At this moment, he realized where his mistake was. It was stupid to use the Izanagi launched by Danzo to speculate about the Izanagi launched by the real Uchiha people. This is like using the same B-level fire release, Great Fire Annihilation. Ordinary people use the power of B-level, but Uchiha Madara used the power of S-level. The same is true for pupil techniques. Different people use pupil techniques, and the power is also different. Danzo himself did not have the blood of Uchiha, and the transplant on his body was not a fusion at the cell level, but a whole arm transplant. So the main part of his chakra was still his own body. Therefore, the Izanagi he launched should be a castrated version, which can only last for a short minute. This is particularly obvious in Madara's case, because Madara used Izanagi to fake his death, not only to deceive the first generation, but also to deceive the second generation who collected his body for experiments. It can be seen in the hands of the real Uchiha people. Izanagi can be delayed. As for how long it can be delayed, I am afraid it varies from person to person. And what is the limit of Obsidian? Hyojin cannot judge. From the battle between Obsidian and Conan, he can use Izanagi for at least 5 minutes or even longer. Whether he can use Izanagi for a long time, Hyojin thinks he should be able to do it. So adding the duration and delay time together, the time of his resurrection is a large range. Staggered, Hyojin half knelt on the ground. He used his Amanoa and Susan in a row, these 3 Manjikyu Sharingan level pupil techniques. Even though he has the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, for a while his pupil power was somewhat difficult to sustain. In addition, he just turned the entire collection into a golden sea of fire in order to ensure that he could seriously injure the resurrected Obsidian, which consumed too much chakra. Cough. After coughing twice, Hyojin thought, maybe only by mastering Izanami and making Obsidian fall into the cycle of fate, it is possible to kill him. Deep in the palace, just at the moment when Hyojin killed Obsidian, 4 generations Mizukage Goji Yagura suddenly opened his eyes. Damn! Following that, his sluggish face gradually twisted. Embarrassment, anger, and other emotions surged into his mind, causing his young face to flush red. There is no doubt that the moment when Obsidian was killed by Hyojin, 4 generations Mizukage took the opportunity to get rid of Obsidian's Genjutsu control. And under the control of Obsidian's Genjutsu, although the 4 generations Mizukage was just a puppet, But what Obsidian did when he controlled him, he was trapped in the Jinjutsu world. Thinking that he, as a Mizukage, became someone else's plaything, thinking that he could only watch Obsidian wreak havoc in the Mist Village, but he couldn't do anything. Monstrous anger and killing intent spread in the chest of 4 generations Mizukage. I must end all this as soon as possible. Picking up his iron hook, 4 generations Mizukage quickly walked out of the secret room. He knew that a coup was breaking out outside, a coup deliberately condoned by Obsidian. Just when 4 generations Mizukage walked out of the secret room, he met Ghost Mermaid, Musashi, and Lotus, who had just been subdued by Obsidian not long ago. Seeing 4 generations Mizukage rushing over, the 3 people thought that 4 generations Mizukage was still Obsidian's puppet, so they greeted him and asked, "Are you ready to make a move?" Looking at the 3 people in front of him, 4 generations Mizukage coldly spat out 2 words, "Traitor." Musashi, who had red eyes, noticed that something was wrong and shouted, "Be careful." He got rid of the control of Jinjutsu. As ninjas of the village of Blood Mist, the 3 people always maintained a high degree of vigilance. Even to each other, they didn't relax their vigilance, so the moment Musashi warned them, they launched an attack. Humph! 4 generations Mizukage snorted coldly. The iron hook in his hand moved, and a water mirror appeared out of thin air. Immediately, 2 figures that looked exactly the same as Ghost Mermaid and Lotus rushed out of the water mirror, facing the attack of Ghost Mermaid and Lotus. Chapter 383. Looking at a figure that looked exactly like them rushing towards them, Ghost Mermaid and Lotus's face changed. As elite Jonin of the Mist, both of them knew that this was the best ninjutsu of the 4 generations Mizukage, water mirror technique. As long as someone was reflected by this water mirror, the water mirror would copy them and create a water mirror clone that had almost the same power as the real one. Bang! A muffled sound echoed in the narrow passage. Ghost Mermaid and Lotus were knocked back by their own water mirror clones and fell on the ground in embarrassment. The 4 generations Mizukage scolded angrily. As ninjas of the mist, where is your sense of shame? The 4 generations Mizukage, who was trapped in the illusion, saw how Obsidian subdued Ghost Mermaid and the other 2 with just a few words. He was angry at the 3's betrayal, but he was also shocked that they would so easily join the Akatsuki. Lotus said disdainfully, "This kind of village is not worth loving." Seeing the real 4 generations Mizukage, he was more or less ashamed. Ghost Mermaid said calmly, "As a Mizukage, you have become someone else's puppet. What qualifications do you have to teach us?" The 4 generations Mizukage was angry. "On behalf of the village, I am going to execute you traitors." After saying that, the 4 generations Mizukage pounced on them on the ground. Jirai looked at the Mizukage building not far away with a serious face, and through the Byakugan, she observed the fierce battle around the building. After a while, Jirai withdrew her gaze and said to Mei, who was beside her, "The battle is still going on, but from the current situation, the rebels have the upper hand." Zabuza took the advantage of the preemptive strike, plus Obsidian deliberately loosened the guards around the Mizukage building, so under Zabuza's sudden attack, the Umbu of the Mist who were loyal to the 4 generations Mizukage suffered heavy casualties. Mei's face darkened and immediately asked an old man with a cane beside her, "Elder, what are we waiting for?" The old man shook his head and said indifferently, "There's no rush." Qing also advised, "Yeah, if we don't take this opportunity to force 4 generations out, we won't be able to determine the true situation of 4 generations." Mei Ming sighed helplessly. In fact, she also knows that this is a good opportunity to confirm the true situation of 4 generations. But the ones fighting outside are all ninjas of the Mist Village. Whether it's the rebel army or the Umbu loyal to 4 generations, they're all part of the Mist Village. No matter how deep Mist Village's foundation was, it wouldn't be able to withstand this kind of endless internal friction. Seeing Mei Ming's thoughts, the old man said, "We old guys are no longer useful. The future of the Mist Village depends on you. You have to learn to think in the Mizukage way, and also learn the Mizukij's Iron Fist. The elders of the Mist Village who originally supported the Mizukij of 4 generations have already bet on Mei Ming, so this time the rebellion caused by Zabuza was actually connived by the elders of the Mist Village. Mei Ming turned to the Umbu of the Mist Village and asked, "Have you investigated the suspicious people who sneaked into the village?" The Umbu of the Mist Village respectfully bowed to Mei Ming, as if he already regarded her as the Mizukij, and replied, "Among the suspicious people who sneaked into the village, the ninjas of the Mist Village, the ninjas of the Sand Crypsis, the ninjas of the Rock Village, and the ninjas of the Takunin Village and the Grass Village can be identified." What? Mei Ming's beautiful face flashed with a trace of anger. Even the Takunin Village and the Grass Village dare to blatantly send people to sneak into the Mist Village. The Umbu of the Mist Village helplessly said, "I'm sorry. This is our dereliction of duty." Green on the side was puzzled. "Where are the people of Mai?" The Umbu of the Mist Village shook his head. "For the time being, we haven't found the infiltrators of Mai, and the people we placed in my village haven't sent back any relevant information." On the other side, in a house where the Mizukij building could be seen from afar, Itachi stood quietly by the window, observing the chaos in the fog outside. His face had an indifference that did not match his age, as if nothing outside could touch his heartstrings. After a while, Itachi left the window. Near the house where he was, he had quietly placed a few ninja crows, so he didn't need to look out the window all the time. What is Kuroto-senpai doing at this time? When will Yami-senpai contact me? After a few questions flashed in his mind, Itachi shook his head and said, "Maybe my strength is too weak, so the senpai didn't give me a real task, and let me stay here as a support." Jie? At this time, there was a sudden cry of a crow outside the window. Outside the Mizukij building, "Haha!" Zabuza, carrying his ninja blade, laughed and kicked open the front door of the Mizukij building. This time, the coup was unexpectedly smooth. The Umbu of the Mist Village loyal to 4 generations Mizukij was completely vulnerable, and the power of the elders in the village didn't show up. Everything was moving in the best direction. Looking at the dark Mizukij building in front of him, Zabuza seemed to see the Mizukij throne waving at him. He waved his ninja blade and ordered the subordinates around him. "Whoever can kill 4 generations Mizukij, I will give him the position of consulting elder. There will be brave men under the reward." In the face of the high position of consulting elder, the mist ninjas around Zabuza seemed to be injected with chicken blood, shouting and rushing into the Mizukij building. Boom! At this moment, there was a loud noise in the Mizukij building. Then a shockwave, accompanied by rolling smoke, rushed out of the Mizukij building. Not to mention the group of mist ninjas that rushed into the Mizukij building. Even Zabuza, who was standing at the entrance of the Mizukij building, was blown away by the shockwave. After falling to the ground far away, Zabuza quickly climbed up, ignoring the subordinates around him, and focused on the Mizukij building where the smoke was billowing. At this time, 3 figures flashed out of the thick smoke. They were the Ghost Mermaid, me, and Lotus, who had fought with 4 generations Mizukij in the underground palace. But at this moment, they looked a little embarrassed, especially Lotus of the Kagaya clan. Half of his body was covered with coral-like crystals. If he hadn't used the periosteum of the corpse bone vein to isolate these coral-like crystals, he would have been swallowed by the coral-like crystals. Pooh! The Ghost Mermaid spat out a mouthful of blood and looked at the smoking door of the Mizukij building. Me gritted his teeth and pulled out half of the blade from his shoulder and also looked at the door while panting. The 3 of them ignored Zabuza, who was not far away, making Zabuza, who felt that he was the protagonist of the night, a little confused for a moment. What's going on? Under everyone's gaze, a figure walked out of the smoking door of the Mizukij building. Zabuza took a closer look and found that the figure was actually the Mizukij of 4 generations Mizukij, who was wearing the coat of a tailed beast and had entered the tailed beast form. Roar! After stepping out of the Mizukij building, the tailed beast of 4 generations Mizukij let out a sad and angry roar. The roar echoed through the whole Mist Village. Chapter 384. Roar. The roar of the three-tailed beast went straight to the sky and echoed in the mist village. Listening to the roar of the tailed beast that seemed to contain chakra, the villagers of the mist village panicked, and lights were lit one after another. In contrast, the ninjas of the mist village were much calmer. Everyone knows that the six-tailed Jinchuriki has defected and left the village. At this time, only the three-tailed Jinchuriki, 4 generations Mizuki Yagura, is still in the village. And as everyone knows, Yagura is one of the few perfect Jinchuriki in the shinobi world. He is a powerful ninja who can completely control the three-tailed Sando and still retain his will and consciousness under the tailed beast transformation. 4 generations personally took action. For a time, this thought flashed in the minds of all the mist ninjas. Mei and the others were no exception. Without the reminder of others, Ayajirai immediately looked in the direction of the Mizukage building. While carefully observing through the Byakugan, she described to the people around her, "There are many chakra reactions at the entrance of the Mizukage building. 5 of them are the strongest, and 4 generations is among them. And he has already transformed into a tailed beast, and the chakra is almost visible to the naked eye." The tailed beast state means that the 4th Mizukage has encountered a hard battle, and the dissipated chakra indicates that the 4th Mizukage's current mood is fluctuating greatly. It seems that he is in a state of rage. Are you sure that it is 4 generations Mizukage himself? The old man who was calm before was now a little panicked. Although he is one of the elders with great power in the Mist Village, in the face of the extraordinary strength of 4 generations Mizukage, he was still a little afraid and asked a stupid question that he shouldn't have asked. Ayajirai replied with a solemn expression, "There is no mistake. No one can imitate the three-tailed beast's chakra." Mei looked puzzled. To deal with Zabuza, does 4 generations Mizukage need to transform into a tailed beast? Ayajirai shook her head. No, Zabuza didn't intervene in the battle. It is other people who are fighting 4 generations Mizukage, huh? It was the remnants of the Huiyi clan, Dried Persimmon Ghost Mermaid, and another person. Mei Ming looked at the old man. The old man pondered for a moment and nodded. Since the Mizukage of 4 generations has been forced out by Zabuza's coup, the elders should also take action. Seeing that the old man had agreed, Mei Ming no longer hesitated and waved her hand. "Let's go." With Mei's order, the ninjas of the Mist Elder, who had already assembled, rushed toward the Mizukage building. Mizukage building. Boom, accompanied by a muffled sound, the tail of the 4 generations Mizukage swept Rinpoche's body, and Rinpoche's whole body was sent flying, slamming into the outer wall of the Mizukage building. Climbing up from the rubble, Lotus wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and snorted. "Humph! I thought Akatsuki was so powerful, but I didn't expect them to make such a mistake. Only the Kagaya clan, who has the corpse bone vein, can immediately climb up after being swept by the tail of the tailed beast and complain as if there was no one around." Avoiding the claw attack of the 4 generations Mizukage, the ghost mermaid said, "Bastard, don't talk nonsense. Come and help." The ghost mermaid, who is good at water release ninjutsu, is completely restrained by the 4 generations Mizukage, who is also good at water release ninjutsu, and the 4 generations Mizukage, who is also good at water release ninjutsu, can't do anything to the 4 generations Mizukage, so the main force against the 4 generations Mizukage is Rinpoche of the Kagaya clan. At this time, Musashi also shouted at Zabuza, who was a little stunned, "Why are you still not doing anything? Do you think the 4 generations Mizukage will let you go?" Zabuza understood that he has no way out, so he waved the shark skin in his hand and joined the battle. However, to everyone's surprise, when Zabuza waved the shark skin towards the 4 generations Mizukage, the shark skin in Zabuza's hand showed a strong resistance, and several sharp thorns appeared on the handle of the shark skin, piercing through Zabuza's hand. How can this be? Zabuza was caught off guard, and subconsciously let go of the shark skin and threw it away. The shark skin, which was thrown away by Zabuza, broke the layers of bandages that wrapped around it, crawled to the side of the 4 generations Mizukage, and obediently showed its kindness to the 4 generations Mizukage. The Four Generations Mizukage immediately held the sharkskin in his hand and said in a hoarse voice, "You all have to die." At this time, Musashi said to the others, "Oh no, a large number of ninjas from the village are coming this way." The ghost mermaid said without hesitation, "Retreat." In fact, they had already planned to retreat. After all, they were all ninjas from the Mist Village, and their fighting ability was greatly suppressed by the Four Generations Mizukage. Plus, they were in the village and were surrounded. If they didn't leave now, they wouldn't be able to do so. Within a blink of an eye, Ghost Mermaid, Yu and Lotus flashed across the air and disappeared from where they were like ghosts. At this time, Zabuza also realized the gap between him and the Four Generations Mizukage, so he didn't care about his subordinates around him. He covered his injured right hand and ran away in panic with the Ghost Mermaid and the others. In the house where Itachi was hiding, hearing the crows cawing outside, Itachi hurried to the window and opened it. Swish! Instantly, a black shadow dashed in. This black shadow was none other than Hyojin, who just had a fierce battle with the obsidian. After dashing into the room, Hyojin sat on the ground, took off the mask on his face, and gasped for breath. Itachi was shocked. It was the first time he saw the Uchiha clan in such a difficult situation. He hurried to ask, "Yama-senpai, are you okay?" Hyojin shook his head. "I'm fine. I just met a tough guy." "Are you hurt?" "Hey, I didn't lose anything." After saying that, Kuroto took out a storage scroll from the storage pouch on his waist and pressed it on scroll. Bang! In a puff of white smoke, more than 10 swords of different shapes appeared in the room. Itachi was confused. "What's this?" As the eldest son of the leader of the wealthy Uchiha clan, Itachi's knowledge was far beyond that of ordinary ninjas, so he could tell at a glance that these swords were one-of-a-kind weapons. He even saw one of the 7 ninja blades in the mist, the double-bladed flounder. Hyojin smiled. "Don't say that I didn't take care of you. Pick one. These are all good things that I personally tested. Each of them is the best of the best." Itachi picked a dagger of the same length as his kunai and said, "Thank you, senpai." Although Itachi was good at all kinds of ninja swords, he didn't really rely on them. He just didn't want to go against Hyojin's good intentions, so he picked a dagger that suited him. After putting away the dagger, Itachi pointed to the double-bladed flounder and asked, "This should be one of the 7 ninja blades in the mist, right? You didn't rob the mist treasure house, did you?" Chapter 385. That's right. Saying so, Suijin resealed the remaining swords and swords into the storage scroll. Each of these swords is worth a lot of money, especially one of the Mist 7 ninjutsu. It's not difficult to sell it for tens of millions, so although he failed to kill the obsidian this time, Hyojin's harvest is not small. After putting away the swords, Hyojin leaned against the wall, listening to the noise outside the window while panting. Compared to the Manjikyu Sharingan, although the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan can restore the lost pupil power, it will take some time to recover if the pupil power is overconsumed. In this battle with the obsidian, Hyojin didn't hold back at all. Therefore, his pupil power consumption is so huge that he had to stop the assassination of the Four Generations Mizukage and withdraw from the underground palace of the Mizukage building. While panting, Hyojin carefully listened to the movement outside the window. At this time, the Mist Village has become a mess. Many villagers rushed to the streets in order to take refuge, trying to escape the village before the war spread to them. The rebellious Mist Ninjas and the Mist Ninjas loyal to the 4th Mizukage were fighting fiercely. Looting the burning house was everywhere, and the spies from other villages were not idle, taking advantage of the chaos to carry out their activities. The originally tranquil village was engulfed in a sky full of flames and clamor. The little bit of order that was left was also rapidly collapsing. "What a pity," Hyojin sighed softly. Such a chaotic situation is actually convenient for him to take advantage of the chaos to kill the 4 Generations Mizukage. But now his pupil power has not recovered, and his combat power is less than 10%. He is really unable to take action. Moreover, from the roar that resounded through the Mist Village, Hyojin heard the emotion of grief and indignation. This kind of strong personal emotion is not something a puppet should have, so he faintly felt that the 4 generations Mizukage may have gotten rid of the control of Obsidian's Jinjutsu. After all, Obsidian's Manjikyu Sharingan's unique pupil technique is Kimui, which has nothing to do with Jinjutsu, so the Jinjutsu he cast on the 4 generations Mizukage should be some kind of high-level Jinjutsu of the Uchiha clan, not the Manjikyu Sharingan's Jinjutsu. In the case of Obsidian's problem, it is normal for the 4 generations Mizukage to get rid of his Jinjutsu. Just when Hyojin was thinking about how to deal with this problem, Itachi saw his hair was a little messy, so he quickly took out a hairband from his pocket and handed it to him. Senpai, senpai. Hyojin subconsciously took the hairband and then was stunned for a moment. You still carry this kind of thing with you? At this time, Itachi also tied his hair, so he nodded and asked curiously, Yes, don't you carry a spare hairband? Hyojin was speechless. After tying his hair again, Hyojin said to Itachi, The situation has changed. Go inform Jishue and tell him to come here as soon as possible. Itachi nodded. Okay, I will inform him with the crow. Seeing that the chaos in the village was getting more and more serious, the 4 generations Mizukage had to return to the village after chasing the ghost mermaid and others for a while. Eliminating the traitors is important, but stabilizing the situation in the Mist Village and quelling the turmoil is undoubtedly more important for Yagura as the Mizukage. With the joint efforts of the 4 generations Mizukage and Mei and the others, a few hours later, the traitors who followed Zabuza were either killed or escaped, and the situation in the Mist Village gradually stabilized. At this time, a soft light appeared on the horizon. A dazzling ray of dawn penetrated the bloody mist and sprinkled on the hidden Mist Village, giving the gloomy and depressing hidden Mist Village a breath of life. After a busy night, the 4 generations Mizukage didn't have time to rest, nor did he have time to repair the Mizukage building, so he directly held a meeting in the dilapidated Mizukage building. The 4 generations Mizukage didn't hide anything and directly announced the fact that he was controlled by the Akatsuki. Instantly, the Mist Village's higher-ups who learned the truth were in an uproar. Some were ashamed, and their faces were red. Some were angry and cursed loudly. But after venting their emotions, the Mist Village's higher-ups fell into an awkward dilemma. If this scandal was exposed before Mai, Kyumo, and San Crypsis joined forces to attack the Akatsuki, then the Mist Village's higher-ups would definitely attack the 4 generations Mizukage. Because even if the culprit is the Akatsuki, as the Mizukage, Yagura can't escape the blame. But after the 3 great shinobi villages joined forces to attack the Akatsuki's headquarters and suffered heavy losses, everyone in the shinobi world knows that the Akatsuki is not an ordinary traitorous shinobi organization. They are a powerful organization that can confront the 5 great shinobi villages head-on. Many people even pessimistically believe that no shinobi village can deal with the Akatsuki one-on-one. After understanding the true strength of the Akatsuki, the fact that the 4 generations Mizukage was plotted against by the Akatsuki isn't that difficult to accept. What's more, the Mist Village's high-level combat power has withered. Not only are there a large number of traitorous shinobi wandering the shinobi world, even the Six Tails is out of control. Dealing with the 4 generations Mizukage at this time is tantamount to cutting off an arm. Seeing the dilemma of the Mist Village's higher-ups, Yagura stood up and bowed to the Mist Village's higher-ups and immediately said, I will give up my position as the Mizukage at the right time. Hearing that the 4 generations Mizukage was willing to take the initiative to step down, the Mist Village's higher-ups were relieved. This is undoubtedly the best solution. After the end of the meeting, the 4 generations Mizukage led Mei, Aojurai, and the remaining elite jonin of the Mist Village to the underground chamber of the Mizukage building. Looking at the scene in the underground chamber, Mei, Aojurai, and the others were shocked. One of the Mist jonin squatted down and touched the cooled and solidified molten iron on the ground and murmured, This touch, the texture of this metal, is very hard. Another jonin of the Mist Village looked at Mei. Even such a hard metal was melted. Is it lava release? Aojurai, with the inside of the Byakugan, observed more carefully than the others, and without waiting for May to answer, he said, "This place was obviously burned by a big fire, but ordinary flames shouldn't reach this level." May nodded solemnly and said, "This metal was melted by flames. Although her lava release can also melt hard metal, the principle of lava release is corrosion, but the situation in the underground chamber is because of the high temperature, so the metal melted." At this time, the 4 generations Mizukage said, "I can feel the breath of the guy who controlled me from the residual chakra. He fought with someone here." May hurriedly asked, "Who?" The 4 generations Mizukage shook his head and said, "I don't know. It's probably not our ninja, and the guy who controlled me should have been defeated." Hearing this, the faces of the Mist ninjas became gloomy. 2 outsiders fought in the core and most secret area of the Mist village, and none of the Mist ninjas noticed it. For a moment, everyone present felt a great sense of humiliation. Chapter 386. Outside the Mist Village. Ghost Mermaid, you, and Lotus finally got rid of the pursuit of the Mist Village's Shadow Division. They stopped by a small stream, took a rest, and bandaged their wounds. Pooh, spitting out a mouthful of blood, Lotus cursed. "Damn Akatsuki, they tricked us." He had just joined the Akatsuki, which controlled the Mizukage of 4 generations, but now he was chased by the Mizukage of 4 generations. It was not hard to imagine how Lotus was feeling right now. Yu's face was also gloomy. He thought that by joining hands with the Akatsuki, he would be able to break free from his fate of living in darkness. But he didn't expect that nothing had changed, and he was still a stray dog. Ghost Mermaid was quite optimistic. He smiled and said, "Not being killed by the Mizukage of 4 generations is already worth celebrating." Ghost Mermaid cooperated with the Ninja Blade. He was able to defeat the 4 Tails Jinchuriki and the 8 Tails Jinchuriki in the original space and time. His strength was infinitely close to the Kage level. But facing the Mizukage of 4 generations, who was also good at water movement, he couldn't use his full strength, so he could only run away. Lotus snorted. "If it weren't for you two, would I be in such a difficult situation?" Ghost Mermaid smiled. "Mr. Lotus, many elders of your Kagaya clan were killed by the Mizukage of 4 generations himself. Lotus, who had the bone vein, could indeed threaten the Mizukage of 4 generations, but if the fight continued, the one who would die would definitely be the Lotus." This had been proven by the Mizukage of 4 generations on many powerful warriors of the Kagaya clan. Lotus was furious. "You want to die?" Like most of the Kagaya clan's people, Lotus was also easily angered and had a bad temper. At this moment, Yu suddenly shouted, "Who is it? Come out!" Yu's shout interrupted the confrontation between the Ghost Mermaid and the Lotus. The 3 of them simultaneously turned their eyes to a bush not far away. Sha-sha, the grass swayed, and a figure walked out from it. This figure was wearing the red cloud uniform of the Akatsuki and a mask that was exactly the same as Obsidian, but his expression and behavior were completely different from Obsidian. As soon as he appeared, he said, "Hello, everyone. My name is Hoodlum, and I'm your partner." Yu was a little confused. "You? What happened to you?" In Crimson Eye's vision, Hoodlum's body was an empty shell. There were no organs that a normal person should have. However, from Chakra's reaction, Hoodlum was real. Looking at Hoodlum, who was dressed very similarly to Obsidian, Lotus Flower snapped. "Hey, what's going on? Why did 4 generations suddenly regain consciousness? Are you messing with us?" This question is very difficult to explain. Anyway, you guys come with me first. When we reach the organization's base, you will understand. In a hidden cave in the country of water, a twisting whirlpool suddenly appeared, and then Obsidian walked out of it with a tired face. Just as Hyojin expected, Obsidian knew that he had been tricked, so he chose to delay the activation of Izanagi. Therefore, when Hyojin retracted his flame release and left the underground palace, Obsidian was revived and successfully avoided Hyojin, who was about to kill him for the 2nd time. In the cave, Akatsuki was a little surprised. "You're hurt?" Obsidian answered casually. "Yes, I ran into some trouble." Akatsuki moved closer and saw that Obsidian's entire left arm was gone. He clicked his tongue in wonder and said, "TSK, TSK, to be able to hurt you like this. Did you meet the leader of Amatsuki?" Akatsuki remembered that the last time Obsidian suffered such a big loss was when he faced 4 generations Naruto during the Rebellion of Nine Tails. "No." After a pause, Obsidian said in an unhappy tone, "It's Homusubi from Amatsuki." Akatsuki smiled and teased. "So it's a confrontation between 2 Sharingan." At this time, Obito took off his mask, revealing the Samagatama Sharingan in his left eye socket that had completely lost its vision. Seeing this, Akatsuki was shocked. "You even used Izanagi?" Using Izanagi means that Obsidian has already died once. Because of this, Akatsuki was even more surprised, because it is difficult for him to imagine who can kill Obsidian who has Kamui. Obsidian said in a deep voice, "I was careless. I didn't expect that woman to be so good at acting. Damn it." "Woman?" Akatsuki was stunned and asked, "You mean Homusubi of Amatsuki is a woman?" Obsidian said, "Her Manjikyu Sharingan Jutsu should be related to Susanoo. I suspect that the ability of her Jutsu is to reduce the energy consumption of the Susanoo." Even at this time, Obsidian still didn't think about the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, because he knows very well that the secret of the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan has long been taken out of the Uchiha family by Madara. Except for him, the descendant of Madara, even Mai's Uchiha clan doesn't know this secret. Moreover, even if someone knows the secret of the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, it would still be useless because as far as Obsidian knows, the only Uchiha clansmen who have awakened the Manjikyu Sharingan are Shinichi, Jishue, Homusubi of Amatsuki, and himself. Among the 4, Obsidian himself, Shinichi, and Jishue have all lost their blood relatives, so they don't have the conditions to fuse with the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan. Although the identity of Homusubi of Amatsuki is unknown, the probability of her blood relatives awakening the Manjikyu Sharingan is very small, so it is impossible for a pair of eternal Manjikyu Sharingan to be born naturally in the current shinobi world without human intervention. Zetsu laughed and said, "Very practical ability." Obsidian nodded and said, "Increase the threat rating of Homusubi. She is not someone that ordinary people can deal with." After saying that, Obsidian's mood became gloomy. This failure is not a small blow to him. Not only was his plan in the mist completely destroyed, but it also confirmed to him that Amatsuki already knows about him. This feeling of powerlessness reminded him of the scene of Rin's death. At that time, he also felt the same powerlessness. Zetsu stopped smiling and said, "The threat of Amatsuki is too great. I am afraid that our plan will be greatly affected. It is time to make up our mind." Obsidian's expression became serious, and he coldly stared at Zetsu. "I know what to do." Zetsu shrugged. "It's just taking back what belongs to you. What is there to hesitate about?" After a moment of silence, Obsidian said lightly, "That thing is not mine. Do you want to give up the dream in your heart?" After a pause, Zetsu continued to instigate. "Take it back, and you'll have double the pupil prowess and the strongest thing that can activate divine might." Chapter 387. I've never given up on the dream in my heart. The masked man's answer was resolute, without the slightest hesitation. "Is that so?" Pausing for a moment, Black Jew sneered. "But you don't have the drive to fight for your dream right now. It's no wonder. It's inevitable for you to retreat when you meet a tough opponent like God's organization. Besides, you're a complete loser." Obsidian stared at Black Jew and opened his mouth, but no words came out. Drip! The dark cave fell into an eerie silence. Only the sound of water dripping from the top of the cave echoed faintly. This was not the first time Black Jew and Obsidian had discussed this topic. After God's organization's leader attacked Nagato, Black Jew had taken the initiative to mention it to Obsidian. Black Jew did not understand why Obsidian, who had cut himself off from the past, was hesitant about this matter. From Heijun's point of view, let alone the fact that it originally belonged to Bao Tu. Even if it didn't, as long as it was useful to Bao Tu, Bao Tu should have taken it without hesitation. Black Jew, who had ulterior motives, and even White Jew, who was relatively simple, did not understand why Obsidian was so conflicted. Looking at Black Jew, who had doubts written all over his face, Obsidian could not explain himself. That I was his gift to Kakashi. At the same time, it was also the last trace of the naive Obsidian's existence. Once he took back that eye, the naive Obsidian who once dreamed of becoming Naruto would disappear completely. Therefore, Obsidian's hesitation was not only because he did not want to face Kakashi, but also because he did not want to bury the Obsidian with his own hands. However, Black Jew did not care about Obsidian's feelings, nor did he care about the last bit of nostalgia that Obsidian had for his past self. The moment God's organization's leader appeared, Black Jew felt an unprecedented sense of danger. As the third son of Otsutsuki Kagaya, Black Zetsu clearly noticed that the leader of Amitsukami under the Tenseigan chakra mode has a power similar to his two brothers, which is not inferior to the Rinnegan. And the nominal leader of the Akatsuki, Nagato, is not the executor of the Eye of the Moon Project. Nagato's idea is to collect the tailed beasts, resurrect the 10 tails, and use the 10 tails to deter the shinobi world and maintain the peace of the shinobi world with boundless fear. Therefore, for Zetsu, Obsidian, who agrees with the Eye of the Moon Project, is the real key. If you don't want to do it yourself, I can help you. After a long time, Heiju said coldly, I will take care of my own business. After a pause, Obsidian asked coldly, is there any progress in the investigation? The previous raid on the Rain Village by Mai, Kyumo, and Sancrypsis was a big lesson for the Akatsuki organization. So after the incident, Obsidian specifically ordered Black Jew to investigate this matter. The Akatsuki organization's management of the Rain Village is almost watertight. What's more, there's still the demigod Hanzo on the surface. So after the war, the 5 great shinobi villages and the Rain Village basically did not interfere with each other. No one would easily provoke the Rain Village with the demigod Hanzo in charge. Therefore, Obsidian suspects that the information about the Akatsuki's headquarters in the Rain Village was deliberately leaked by the traitor Orochimaru or Shino. Well, there's indeed some progress in the investigation. Although he knows that Obsidian is deliberately changing the topic, but the investigation of the information leak is also a major event related to the survival of the organization, so Zetsu still answered obediently. Obsidian asked what progress. Zetsu said slowly, my clone found one of Shino's men in an underground casino in the Land of Fire. After some interrogation, that guy revealed a piece of information. As soon as Shino defected, he was targeted by Amitsukami, and the one who attacked him was Homusubi. Homusubi. After thinking for a while, Obsidian shook his head. Shino is no match for Homusubi. I'm afraid that he has already fallen into the hands of Amitsukami, and the information should have been leaked by him. Zetsu nodded. After learning this news, his opinion is the same as Obsidian. No wonder Amitsukami also intervened in the raid of the 3 great shinobi villages against us. It seems that the raid of the 3 great shinobi villages was secretly planned by Amitsukami. Thinking of this, Obsidian's face darkened. In his opinion, this raid against Akatsuki is nothing more than a premeditated plan by Amitsukami to kill them with a borrowed knife. Both the 3 great villages and Akatsuki were ruthlessly played by Amitsukami. Suppressing the anger in his heart, Obsidian asked, can you find out who passed the information to the 3 great villages? In order to kill them with a borrowed knife, Amitsukami not only needs to pass the information about Akatsuki to the 3 great villages, but also to win the trust of the 3 great villages. So, as long as we follow this clue, it won't be difficult to find traces of Amitsukami. However, Zetsu shook his head and said, I can't find this person. Obsidian's brows furrowed. What? Zetsu said, according to the information that can be found so far, this raid was initiated by Mai's 3 generations Naruto, and the level of confidentiality is extremely high. Even the elders of Might didn't know about it until after the raid. As for who provided the information to the 3 generations Naruto, I'm afraid that only the 3 generations Naruto, 4 generations Liang, and 4 generations Kazekage know about it. Obsidian ordered, "We must find this person." Zetsu was a bit embarrassed. This time, the fact that we're controlling the 4 generations Mizukage has been exposed. It will be very difficult to deal with these Kage. There are no idiots who can become a Kage. The fact that the Yandere Mizukage is being controlled by the Akatsuki will inevitably spread quickly. And at that time, everyone will become more aware of the fact that Kage-class powerhouses can't guarantee their own safety in front of the Akatsuki with their own strength. So after this incident, the Kage will definitely pay more attention to their own safety. Obsidian also knows that this matter will be difficult to investigate. So he said, "Continue to investigate. There will always be a chance." Zetsu nodded his head. As if thinking of something, Obsidian said, "Orochimaru is also a hidden danger. We must get rid of him as soon as possible." I do have information about Orochimaru's whereabouts, but in the previous battle, although the Akatsuki organization didn't have any casualties on the surface, they retreated from the battlefield with dignity. But in fact, their leader Nagato was seriously injured and had to transplant the first-generation cells. Sasori lost a lot of puppets, and his combat power was greatly reduced. Kakuzu lost 4 hearts in a row, and Bippa Juzo was also seriously injured. Hiriko even fought with the 4 generations Liang, causing the ghost sprout to bite him, and he still hasn't recovered yet. The only ones who didn't suffer any injuries were Konin and Shinichi. Chapter 388. But Zetsu knows very well that Konin is Nagato's man and has always been on guard against Obsidian and will not listen to Obsidian's orders at all. As for Shinichi, he has obviously realized that the pupil power of the Manjikyu Sharingan cannot be completely recovered after consumption. Every time he uses it, he will permanently lose a part of the pupil power, so he rarely uses the Manjikyu Sharingan's pupil technique in battle. Therefore, the Akatsuki organization, which is famous in the ninja world, actually has no good way to deal with Orochimaru in a short time. After a little hesitation, Obsidian said, "I recruited a few strong guys in the Mist Village. Tell me the whereabouts of Orochimaru, and I will let them deal with Orochimaru." Zetsu immediately threw a scroll to Obsidian. Last month, Orochimaru showed up in the land of Tion. The specific location is recorded in this scroll. I hope the people you recruited can give us a surprise. Land of Tion? Obsidian raised his eyebrows. I heard that the small country has recently formed a small ninja village. Zetsu said, "Well, a small ninja village called Sound Village. The name of the land of Tion has issued a statement to the surrounding countries and has officially begun to allocate funds to the Sound Village." Orochimaru, Sound Village. After a pause, Obsidian asked, "Will they be related?" Zetsu shook his head. "I don't know. Orochimaru is mysterious. No one knows what disgusting things he is thinking in his mind." Obsidian got up and said, "Let's go. The layout of the land of water has been exposed. There's no point in staying here." After saying that, the masked man stepped into the twisting whirlpool and disappeared from the cave in the Mist Village. As the 4 generations Mizukage got rid of Obsidian's control, the order of the Mist Village was quickly restored. After stabilizing the situation in the Mist Village, the first thing that the 4 generations Mizukage presided over was to lead a group of Umbu of the Mist Village to expel all the foreign spies who had been exposed in the Mist Village. Because they were waiting for Jishue's arrival, Hyojin and Itachi didn't take any action these days. Instead, they avoided the investigation personally led by 4 generations Mizukage. Looking at the Mist Village that was gradually restoring order and vitality, Itachi sighed. "I didn't expect that the Mizukage was actually controlled by the Akatsuki." Hyojin didn't mention the possibility of the Mizukage being controlled by Akatsuki to anyone. So whether it was 3 generations Naruto who issued the mission or Itachi who participated in the operation, They only thought that the 4 generations Mizukage might have colluded with the Akatsuki, but they never thought that the 4 generations Mizukage might be a puppet of the Akatsuki. After all, the fact that the village of Kage was a plaything in the hands of others was too sensational. Hyojin was lying on the bed, his eyes staring straight at the ceiling, thinking about the information he had obtained in the past few days. After the night of Zabuza's rebellion, the fact that the 4 generations Mizukage was controlled by the Akatsuki was quickly exposed, and in just a day or two, everyone knew about it. Logically speaking, such a scandal should be covered up by the Mist Village's top management. Even if the matter was too big to be completely covered up, it would still take time for the matter to be leaked and fermented. It was impossible for it to spread in such a short period of time. Even the rumor that the 4 generations Mizukage committed suicide out of shame has appeared. Hyojin smelled the smell of a conspiracy. Obviously, someone is manipulating the public opinion to attack the authority of the 4 generations Mizukage, forcing the 4 generations Mizukage to step down as soon as possible. At this time, Itachi came to the bed and said, "Senpai, since the 4 generations Mizukage has broken away from the Akatsuki's control, there is no need for us to carry out the mission, right? The 4 generations Mizukage, who hated the Akatsuki, is more useful alive than dead." So Itachi felt that the 3 generations Mizukage would not blame Hyojin for giving up the assassination mission after learning about what happened in the Mist Village. Hyojin shook his head. "No, you are oversimplifying things." Itachi was a little puzzled. "Are you worried that the 4 generations Mizukage will harm our Mai?" Hyojin curled his lips and said, "I am worried that he won't be able to hold the position of the Mizukage." Itachi suddenly nodded and said, "The current public opinion in the Mist Village is indeed very unfavorable to the 4 generations Mizukage. Because the Obsidian was worried that the 4 generations Mizukage would be exposed, the 4 generations Mizukage direct subordinates have been attacked in the past 2 years. Today, the 4 generations Mizukage only has a few direct subordinates left, and his control over the Mist Village has also been reduced to the lowest level. It is impossible to reverse the village's unfavorable public opinion." At this time, a crow landed on the windowsill. Itachi quickly opened the window and took a secret letter from the crow's leg, opened it, and said, "Senpai, Brother Jishue will arrive at the Mist Village tonight." Hyojin nodded. Jishue is Mai's #1 speed besides Hyojin. In terms of body flicker technique, it is comparable to Hiriko's rapid release. In addition, Hyojin arranged 3 generations Kazekage puppets to take him across the sea, so Hyojin was not surprised that Jishue can arrive so quickly. Time flew, and night fell. In the deep, thick fog, Jishue quietly sneaked into the Mist Village and met with Hyojin and Itachi in the house. Soon, Hyojin told Jishue what happened in the Mist Village these days. Jishue was stunned after listening. The Mizukage has been controlled by the Jinjutsu for so long, and no one in the Mist Village has discovered it? Itachi nodded. When he heard it for the first time, he also felt that it was ridiculous. Hyojin announced his idea to Jishue and Itachi. "We must control 4 generations Mizukage and ensure his position as the Mizukage." Jishue immediately asked, "Didn't 4 generations Mizukage already get rid of the Akatsuki's control?" Hyojin explained, "Now the public opinion in the Mist Village is very unfavorable to 4 generations Mizukage. I am worried that he won't be able to hold the position of the Mizukage." Itachi also echoed, "Yama-senpai is right. Now the entire Mist Village is questioning 4 generations Mizukage. His situation is not good." Jishue said, "Don't forget, this is the Blood Mist Village. As long as 4 generations Mizukage doesn't step down, will the Mist Village set off another coup? If this happens to Mai, even 3 generations Naruto's prestige can only step down. But the Mist Village is different. Because of the perennial internal strife, the Mist Village with the title of Blood Mist Village has always recognized strength, and 4 generations Mizukage is undoubtedly the strongest in the Mist Village." Hyojin said, "That's why we must strengthen the determination of 4 generations Mizukage. Let him hold the Mizukage throne. Jishui said with some uncertainty. Are you worried that 4 generations Mizukage will step down? Because he is not familiar with 4 generations Mizukage, Itachi chose to remain silent. Hyojin nodded. This possibility is very high. Jishui asked. Then, how do we strengthen the determination of 4 generations Mizukage to keep the Mizukage throne? Hyojin smiled and said, Didn't Akatsuki just show us? Chapter 389. You guys, looking at the 3 figures that suddenly appeared in front of him, the Umbu of the Mist Village guarding the main entrance of the Mizukage building suddenly looked serious and vigilantly pulled out his katana, but before the blade was completely unsheathed, his movements became sluggish. Immediately afterward, the Umbu's body began to sway, and he staggered 2 steps as if drunk. Bang, accompanied by a low muffled sound, he fell to the ground, and his head tilted as he fell asleep, and a half-drawn katana slowly slid back into the scabbard. Everything returned to silence again, as if nothing had happened. At this time, Itachi retracted his gaze, and the 3 orbs gradually slowed down in his scarlet eyes. On the side, Jishui looked around and said doubtfully, This is too abnormal. How can the guards of the Mizukage building be so weak? The Mizukage building is the core of the Mist Village, but there are less than 3 squads guarding the periphery, and there's only 1 Jonin-level Umbu stationed at the main entrance, which is really difficult for Jishui to accept. Hyojin pushed the door and said lightly, This should also be a means for the Mist Village's higher-ups to put pressure on the 4 generations Mizukage. It seems that there are not many people available around the 4 generations Mizukage. The Mist Village's higher-ups obviously want to use betrayal to remind the 4 generations Mizukage to accept reality and abdicate as soon as possible. Jishui sighed with emotion. I didn't expect the situation of the 4 generations Mizukage to be so bad. Perhaps you are right. I'm afraid the 4 generations Mizukage won't be able to sit on the Mizukage's throne. Hyojin glanced at Jishui and said, This is a power struggle. The Mist Village doesn't even want the face of one of the 5 great shinobi villages to publicize the dereliction of duty of the 4 generations Mizukage. This shows that the Mist Village's higher-ups not only have a candidate to replace the 4 generations Mizukage, but also can't wait to force the 4 generations Mizukage to step down. However, unlike other shinobi villages, becoming a Mizukage does not require the approval of all the Mist shinobi. In the land of Blood Mist, which is full of blood and slaughter, as long as one's strength is strong enough, then one has the qualifications to become a Mizukage. This is also the reason why Zabuza dared to launch a coup, because he knows very well that as long as he kills the 4 generations of Mizukage, regardless of whether the Mist shinobi recognize him or not, he has great hope to ascend to the throne of the Mizukage and become the 5th Mizukage. And because the 4 generations Mizukage was strong enough, the Mist Village's higher-ups could only play these disgusting tricks. After entering the Mizukage building, the 3 of them turned a corner and encountered 2 Mist Village guards. Who are you? As soon as his voice fell, the 2 Mist shinobi looked at the previous Mist ninja and fell to the ground weakly, falling asleep. Hyojin put back the kunai that he had just pulled out from a ninja bag and looked back at Jishui and Itachi, who had activated their Sharingan, and muttered, Just a stare, and it's over. In a one-on-one situation, almost no ninja can resist the Manjikyu Sharingan's Jinjutsu, and among all the Manjikyu Uchiha, Jishui and Itachi's Jinjutsu is undoubtedly the best. Even Obsidian and Shinichi are far inferior to them. It can be said that Jishui and Itachi are the pinnacle of Jinjutsu in the world of shinobi. Itachi asked, Yami-senpai, why do I rarely see you using Jinjutsu? Jishui also became interested and looked at Hyojin. For the Uchiha clan, Jinjutsu can be said to be the foundation of the clan. Even in the original world, because the clan was destroyed, Sasuke, who did not receive the orthodox Uchiha Jinjutsu education, would occasionally show off his Jinjutsu, although most of the time he would be immediately slapped in the face. It can be said that for all the Uchiha clan members who have activated their Sharingan, Jinjutsu is a compulsory course, and almost all those who have 3 Magatama Sharingan are masters of Jinjutsu. Ahem! Hyojin coughed twice awkwardly and said, "These small fries are not worthy of my Jinjutsu." Itachi nodded seriously. "So that's how it is." Shursui is very clear that the Manjikyu Sharingan in Uchiha Homusubi Zai sockets is the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, which is above the Manjikyu Sharingan. So he nodded in agreement. The reason why Jishui and Itachi did not doubt Hyojin's words is that as geniuses, it is very simple for them to think that Uchiha, who should also be a genius, is not good at Jinjutsu. The 3 of them walked all the way to the entrance of the underground palace because there were too few mist guards along the way. All of them were subdued by Jishui and Itachi's Jinjutsu. So when the 3 of them arrived at the entrance of the underground palace, they still did not alert the mist village, leaving only the sleeping mist guards. Soon, Hyojin took the lead and entered the underground palace located in the Mizukage building. Following behind Hyojin, Jishui observed the underground palace and couldn't help but ask. Yin Hyojin waved his hand. "At this point, even if you want to quit, it is too late." Jishui said, "I want to ask you why you are so skilled. Isn't this the forbidden area of the Mist Village?" Itachi leaned over to Jishui's ear and whispered, "Yana-senpai sneaked in once before and even looted the Mist Village's collection. Well, let's talk about this later." After a pause, Hyojin continued, "This underground palace, in fact, there are many areas that I have not explored. We may encounter 4 generations Mizukage at any time. So Itachi, don't be distracted, be ready to fight at any time." The strength of 4 generations Mizukage is actually very strong. If they want to defeat him a normal way, Hyojin and the other 2 can naturally do it. But that is bound to cause a war, alarming the entire Mist Village. So Hyojin and the others must deal with 4 generations Mizukage as soon as possible and control the scope of the battle within the underground palace. In the original timeline, 4 generations Mizukage was easily subdued by Itachi's Amaterasu, so Hyojin has already made a plan before the action. After encountering 4 generations Mizukage, Itachi will take action, saving all the process of probing and directly activating Amaterasu. Itachi quickly replied, "Well, I understand." In a blink of an eye, the 3 arrived outside the collection where Hyojin and the Obsidian fought fiercely before. At this time, there are several cordons outside the collection, and there are 2 mist ninjas guarding the door. Listening to the movement, there seems to be other ninjas in the collection, but it is unknown whether these ninjas are collecting information about the battle between Hyojin and the Obsidian or repairing the messy collection. Suijin glanced at Shursui and Itachi, and the 2 of them immediately stepped forward and used Genjutsu to subdue the 2 Umbu members of the Mist Village who were guarding outside the collection warehouse. The whole process was silent and didn't even disturb the members of the Mist Village who were busy inside the collection warehouse. After some interrogation, Itachi said to Hyojin, "Yano-senpai, the 4 generations Mizukage is in the underground palace. The location is about the southeast lounge." Hyojin gently nodded. "Let's go to the lounge." In the underground palace lounge, the 4 generations Mizukage rubbed his eyebrows, his face full of fatigue. Physical fatigue is secondary. The most depressing thing is that the village is closing in on him, which makes the young Mizukage feel very depressed, and even made him fall into confusion. At this moment, a bad feeling suddenly surged in his heart, and immediately listened, and found several light footsteps coming from the passage outside the lounge. Chapter 390. 1, 2, 3. Listening to the footsteps in the passage, 4 generations Mizukage immediately became alert. Before entering the lounge, he had already informed his subordinates around him. According to common sense, no one would come to the lounge to disturb him at this time. Enemies? Picking up the iron hook in his hand, 4 generations Mizukage stood up with a gloomy face. If it was his subordinates reporting to him about the emergency in the village, then the footsteps would not be so slow, so the three people in the passage were most likely enemies with bad intentions. His figure flashed. 4 generations Mizukage rushed out of the lounge. The grievance of being controlled by Akatsuki was still piling up in his heart, and now he wanted to find someone to vent his anger. And someone came to him. Naturally, he was more than happy. Whoosh! After a moment, with a sound of breaking wind, 4 generations Mizukage intercepted the 3 people in the passage. He held the iron hook in his hand horizontally. Surging killing intent and monstrous anger overflowed from his body. He was like a starving and irascible beast that was looking for prey to fill its stomach. But when he saw that the 3 people in front of him were all wearing the same Amatsuki uniform, wearing the same flame pattern mask on their faces, his expression froze. Amatsuki. Almost subconsciously, 4 generations Mizukage entered the tailed beast state. After suffering a loss once, he was very clear that in the shinobi world, Amatsuki is as strong as Akatsuki, and a little carelessness will repeat the same mistake of being played by Akatsuki. After instantly entering the tailed beast state, 4 generations Mizukage roared. Again? Do you really think I am easy to bully? The Mizukage is not someone you bastards can play with. Once he put on the chakra-tailed beast coat, 4 generations Mizukage would be immune to most physical and ninjutsu damage, and wrapped in the thick chakra-tailed beast coat, he could resist the chakra-based genjutsu. Therefore, he was confident that this time he would be able to teach them a lesson and let everyone know that the Mizukage is not to be trifled with. Hoo-hoo! However, as soon as the 4 generations Mizukage's voice fell, a black flame ignited on his body. Fire escape? The 4 generations Mizukage didn't care. The corner of his mouth raised, revealing a disdainful expression. In his opinion, using fire-release ninjutsu on himself as a Mizukage is simply an unimaginably stupid behavior, and he couldn't help but mock Kuroto. But the black flame quickly spread, and in the blink of an eye, the black flame spread to the whole body of 4 generations Mizukage. In an instant, a painful burning sensation surged in the heart of the 4 generations Mizukage. In just a short moment, he felt as if his body was completely burnt. The chakra-tailed beast coat that had always been successful before seemed to have no effect this time. It simply couldn't resist the black flame's damage to his body. What kind of fire escape is this? How can this be? The 4 generations Mizukage gritted his teeth and propped up his body, opening his mouth to condense a tailed beast jade. In such a narrow passage, the opponent couldn't escape at all. As long as this tailed beast jade was activated, he felt that he could at least die together with the opponent, and he could also create chaos and attract the attention of the village. But at this moment, his eyes suddenly lit up. A golden shadow was projected from the body of one of the gods' organization members. It quickly enlarged and turned into a golden giant within a breath's time. Susanoo, Manjikyu Sharingan again? Uchiha clan again? Mixed thoughts instantly surged in the mind of the 4 generations Mizukage. Boom! Before the 4 generations Mizukage could recover, the golden giant that had just formed suddenly swung its hands and hammered at him. At this moment, the Mizukage felt as if he had been hit by a mountain. Although his body's strength and resistance had been doubled under the tailed beast transformation, he was still dizzy from the blow, and the tailed beast jade that was condensing in his mouth was interrupted because of this. Damn Uchiha. The 4 generations Mizukage cursed and tried to get up again, but he immediately found that his body was pressed to the ground by the golden giant's hands, and he couldn't move at all, and the black flame completely engulfed him from head to toe. Damn! It didn't take long for the 4 generations Mizukage to gradually lose consciousness under the burning of the black flame, and then he passed out unwillingly. At this time, Hyojin said lightly, "Okay, extinguish the Amaterasu." Following Hyojin's order, Itachi immediately extinguished the Amaterasu on the body of the 4 generations Mizukage, and then slowly closed the Manjikyu Sharingan, and his eyes returned to normal black color. Hyojin also grinned and put away the Susan. The black flame that had covered the whole body of the 4 generations Mizukage burned all the way to Hyojin's Susa arms, and through the chakra, Hyojin also felt an unbearable burning pain. So not only the 4 generations Mizukage experienced the Amaterasu, but also Hyojin, who had activated the Susu to prevent the 4 generations Mizukage from using the tailed beast jade, actually also experienced the power of the Amaterasu. Looking at the 4 generations Mizukage lying on the ground, Hyojin shook his head. "It's really miserable." Jishui covered his nose and said with a dark face, "He won't die, right?" At this moment, even the air was rippling with the smell of cooked meat. Itachi said very seriously, "It shouldn't be. I have deliberately avoided his vital parts. With the quality of his Jinchuriki, he shouldn't die." Hyojin walked over and squatted beside the 4 generations Mizukage. Although a large part of the body was burnt, as Itachi said, the vital parts of the body were not seriously damaged. His breathing and heartbeat were also normal. He just temporarily fainted. It really deserves to be called the strongest flame. Hyojin couldn't help but sigh. The power of the Amaterasu is obviously stronger than his golden flame, and it also has the characteristic of not extinguishing. It is really a good weapon for sneak attacks. Once hit, if you can't take effective measures in a very short time, then when the black flame spreads to the whole body, you can only wait for death. In the original time and space, during the final battle between Sasuke and Naruto, Naruto once used the method of removing a part of the chakra-tailed beast coat to block the attack of Sasuke's Amaterasu. In other words, in the face of the Amaterasu attack, it is meaningless to forcefully resist it. The only way is to isolate it, be it physical isolation or the method of sealing. In short, the black flame must be separated from his body. After confirming that the 4 generations Mizukage is still alive, Hyojin turned to the side and said to Jishui, "Do it." Jishui walked over. Her face was hesitant. Chapter 391. Looking at the unconscious 4 generations Mizukage on the ground, and then looking at Hyojin on the side, Jishui hesitantly said, "If we do this, if it is exposed, I'm afraid it will cause a war, right?" Hyojin said, "That's why we can't use ordinary illusions." But, after a pause, Jishui still couldn't make up her mind. But he is the Mizukage, and he represents the Mist Village. If this matter is out of our control, I'm afraid it will bring trouble to the village. Hyojin stood up and looked at Jishui. If we don't intervene, he won't live long. This is not Hyojin's exaggeration. In the original world, Aojirai used the Byakugan to see through the Obsidian's plot to control the 4 generations Mizukage and successfully remove the Genjutsu on the 4 generations Mizukage. However, the 4 generations of Mizukage died soon after, and the position of Mizukage fell to the 5th generation Mizukage, Mei. As for the cause of death of the 4 generations Mizukage, although Hyojin wasn't too clear, it was nothing more than murder or suicide. If the 4 generations Mizukage died from a murder, then it means that the Mist Village's higher-ups have reached an agreement, and the 4 generations Mizukage was either depressed or guilty, so he didn't realize this in time and was killed. However, based on Hyojin's analysis of the Hidden Mist sect situation, he felt that this was unlikely, because in the Hidden Mist Village, the only one who could threaten the 4 generations Mizukage was Mei Ming, who had mastered both lava release and boiling release double blood limit boundary. Mei was the representative of the moderate faction in the Mist Village, and she was also the advocate of reforming the Blood Mist Village. The probability of her participating in the murder of 4 generations Mizukage is very low, and she may not be able to kill 4 generations Mizukage. Therefore, Hyojin felt that the cause of death of 4 generations Mizukage was most likely suicide. It must be known that ninja suicide is not a rare thing. Kakashi's father, who made a name for himself as my White Fang, and was even more famous than Sannin, died of suicide. As for Hitaki Shwomo's suicide, it was only because he had failed his mission and caused the village to suffer losses. In contrast, the 4 generations Mizukage became someone else's plaything, causing chaos in the Mist Village, Whether it was his own reputation or the Mist Village's loss, it was far more than the failure of Hitaki Shwomo's mission, so it was very reasonable for him to choose suicide. However, whether the 4 generations Mizukage committed suicide out of guilt or was he forced to commit suicide by public opinion, Hyojin couldn't tell. After pondering for a moment, Jishui asked, "Will Elder Jing allow us to do this?" Hyojin glanced at Itachi and said, "Itachi, you go to the front and guard. I have something to say to Jishui alone." Itachi nodded, then consciously walked to the distance and stood guard. After Itachi walked away, Suijin said to Shui, "Kuroto-sama has told me everything about you, and this operation was also instructed by Kuroto-sama. The risk of transplanting the first-generation cells is great, and you may not survive, so this may be your only chance to use Koto Amitsukami. Do you really want to bring Koto Amitsukami into the tomb?" Jishui smiled bitterly. "I didn't expect Elder Jing to even tell you this," Hyojin said, "so you don't need to doubt that all my actions are instructed by Elder Jing. Well, since Elder Jing has decided, let's start." Jishui no longer hesitated and immediately activated her Manjikyu Sharingan, then lifted up the unconscious Yonde Mizukage and peeled the eyelids of the Yonde Mizukage with her hand. The two sides looked at each other, and in an instant, the 4-blade pattern on Jishui's Manjikyu Sharingan flew up. Pupil technique, Koto Amitsukami. Dong dong. At the moment when Jishui activated Koto Amitsukami, Hyojin on the side seemed to hear a heartbeat. However, he knew that this was not a real heartbeat, but a resonance of will caused by Jishui's Manjikyu Sharingan pupil technique. At this moment, Jishui's will and the will of Yonde Mizukage were connected. Koto Amitsukami is different from ordinary Jinjutsu. It is a pupil technique that can change the target's will. In the process of invading the opponent's brain and changing their will, it can be seen through by the Byakugan. When Danzo tried to change the will of the Iron Kingdom's Admiral Mifune at the Gakage tournament, it was seen through by Aoi, who had a Byakugan. But once the will is modified and the pupil power is withdrawn, the target controlled by Koto Amitsukami will be no different from an ordinary person, and there will be no other person's chakra entrenched in their brain, so even the Byakugan can't see through it. This is also the reason why Koto Amitsukami is known as the strongest Jinjutsu, because it only needs one modification, and there is no need for continuous control. Of course, if it was Jishui who used Koto Amitsukami at the Gakage tournament, then before Aoi realized that something was wrong, Jishui may have already completed the modification of Mifune's will. After all, Danzo without Uchiha's bloodline. All the forbidden techniques and pupil techniques related to the Sharingan are emasculated versions. At this time, Jishui said, "I have already invaded his brain. How can I change his will?" Hyojin pondered for a moment and said, "Be loyal to Amitsukami." Jishui thought for a moment and felt that it made sense. If 4 generations Mizukage engraved the mark of "Be loyal to my village," then his words and actions will be incompatible with his identity as a Mizukage. At that time, even if the higher-ups of the Mist Village judge that he is not under the Jinjutsu, they will still suspect that he is under my village, and he will not be able to keep his position as the Mizukage. Jishui gently pressed his hand on 4 generations Mizukage's forehead and slowly said, "You are a member of Amitsukami, and you will be loyal to Amitsukami until your death." 4 generations Mizukage also slowly said, "I am a member of Amitsukami, and I will be loyal to Amitsukami until my death." After completing the modification of his will, Jishui covered his eyes and gasped for breath. Before this, Jishui's eyesight had already deteriorated severely, and after activating Koto Amitsukami, the vision of his left eye has deteriorated again. Not only did he see double images, he even saw black shadows. After closing the Manjikyu Sharingan, Jishui staggered a few steps and said, "It will take at least 10 years for my left eye to be able to use Koto Amitsukami again." The sudden decline of his eyesight has also affected Jishui's sense of balance. Even the simple action of getting up is quite difficult for him. Hyojin stepped forward and supported Jishui. "After this mission is over, you can receive the Hashirama cell transplant. If everything goes well, your power will soon be restored. There are only two ways to restore the eyesight of the Manjikyu Sharingan. One is to transplant the Hashirama cell transplant that contains the yang attribute of chakra, and the other is to fuse with the Manjikyu Sharingan and evolve it into the eternal eyes. But Jishue has no blood relatives, so after he refused the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan from Hyojin's fire release clone, the only way left is to transplant the Hashirama cell transplant. Chapter 392. Inside the Fog's Secret Technique Archive. Hyojin quietly flipped through the scroll in his hand. Sometimes he nodded slightly, and sometimes he frowned slightly. What was recorded on the scroll was the secret technique of the Ghost Lantern clan of the Hidden Fog clan, the water transformation technique. It was also the most representative water escape technique of the Ghost Lantern clan. The reason why Kuroto flipped through the water release secret technique of the Ghost Lantern clan was because he discovered that due to the bottleneck in the development of the fire release Kekii limit, he had no choice but to spend more time controlling the fire release clone, which in turn made the compatibility between his soul and the fire clone better and better, even showing signs of surpassing the water clone. According to this progress, once the fire escape clone finished developing the flame escape blood limit, the fire escape clone's development would be above the water escape clones. If he wanted to increase the success rate of the Bloodline Net plan, he had to ensure the balance between each clone. Therefore, he had no choice but to collect some water escape secret techniques to further strengthen the water clone and increase the development of the water clone so that the water clone and fire clone could maintain the same level. However, the water escape secret technique of the Ghost Lantern clan wasn't that easy to grasp. It vaguely involved the bloodline inheritance, and it seemed that it required the unique physique of the Ghost Lantern clan in order to cultivate it. Hyojin tried it with the current fire clone, but he couldn't grasp it at all. Just as Hyojin was deep in thought, a figure came to his side. This person was none other than the 4 generations Mizukage Goji Yagura, who was covered in healing bandages. Goji Yagura glanced at the secret technique scroll in Hyojin's hand and said coldly, "The secret technique of the Ghost Lantern clan can't be cultivated by outsiders." Kodo Amitsukami had only altered a portion of Yagura's will, implanting a false life experience and goal in his mind. However, it wouldn't completely distort his personality. Yagura's way of thinking and behavior were still his own. Itachi, who was affected by the Kodo Amitsukami, was a classic example. Moreover, the alteration of the god of creation was permanent. Other illusions would not be able to remove or cover the god of creation. According to Hyojin's own understanding, the god of creation had a very high priority, and its authority was very high. It had to be known that the filthy earth reincarnation was a terrifying forbidden technique that could distort the boundaries between life and death. In the original space-time, after Nagato was resurrected by the impure earth reincarnation, he was able to use the ability of the Eye of Reincarnation. But the Eye of Reincarnation on his corpse had already been removed by obsidian, and the Eye of Reincarnation was not his own. His soul did not contain the Eye of Reincarnation chakra. Logically speaking, after being resurrected by the impure earth reincarnation, he should not be able to use the ability of the Eye of Reincarnation. But the impure earth reincarnation distorted the boundary between life and death, allowing him to use the Eye of Reincarnation from when he was still alive. From this, it could be seen that the impure earth reincarnation technique had a very high priority. In the face of the living dead of the impure earth reincarnation, the ninja coalition was helpless. Taijutsu, ninjutsu, and Genjutsu were all useless. They could only use various sealing techniques to seal the living dead. In Hyojin's impression, in addition to the overbearing sealing techniques, there are 2 other techniques that have a higher priority than the impure earth reincarnation. One is the truth-seeking ball that contains the 7 different attributes of yin and yang, the 5 elements, and the other is the Kodo Amitsukami. After being hit by the truth-seeking ball, Even the living dead of the impure earth reincarnation cannot recover. But the Kotoa Mitsukami can cover the control of the caster of the impure earth reincarnation, allowing the living dead of the impure earth reincarnation to completely regain their freedom. In the original timeline, Itachi had used Kotoa Mitsukami to get rid of Satoshi's control and counter Satoshi. He used an illusion to control Satoshi and dispel the undead army of the Edo Tensei, which was why Yagura had his will altered by the Kotoa Mitsukami. He is already someone that Hyojin can trust. Hyojin glanced at Goji Yagura. How can you be so sure? Could it be that the Mist Village has already tried it? Goji Yagura nodded. Hyojin's brows furrowed tightly. Then, isn't the secret technique of the Ghost Lantern clan the same as the blood limit? Goji Yagura thought for a moment and was about to open his mouth. But when the words reached his mouth, he shook his head and didn't say anything. The corner of Hyojin's mouth twitched as he smiled. There must be a way to cultivate the secret technique of the Ghost Lantern clan, right? Goji Yagura crossed his arms in front of his chest and said coldly, other than the Ghost Lantern clan, the Snow Clan with the Ice Release also has the possibility of cultivating the Ghost Lantern clan's Water Release secret technique. Because these two clans often have a marriage alliance, both sides have some recessive genes of the other. However, the Snow Clan has already been annihilated, so it's meaningless to talk about this. The Snow Clan can also cultivate the Ghost Lantern clan's Water Release secret technique. Hyojin supported his chin with one hand, and the corner of his mouth curved. His Water Release clone happened to be fused with the cells of the Snow Clan's Haku. If the Snow Clan had the possibility of cultivating the Ghost Lantern clan's secret technique, then his Water Release clone should have the same possibility as well. At this moment, Goji Yagura took down the huge blade on his back and said, "This is the mermaid muscle you wanted." As soon as Hyojin took the mermaid muscle, his expression turned cold. "It's heavy." Whoosh whoosh. After waving it a few times, Hyojin propped the mermaid muscle on the ground. The weight of the mermaid muscle had far exceeded his expectations. With the body of the Fire Release clone, just waving it was already very strenuous. It was difficult to use it in actual combat. Goji Yagura looked at Hyojin from head to toe and said coolly, "Using a large ninjato requires special training. Your body isn't suitable for the mermaid muscle." "TSK, I'm taller than you, all right?" Curling his lips, Hyojin cursed in his heart. "Even if I can't use it, can't I sell it?" Goji Yagura's face darkened, and he immediately took out an account book and said, "This is the Mist Village's account book." Kuroto hurriedly put the Sharkman aside and reached out to take the account, but after a quick glance, his face became extremely ugly, and without any care for his image, he roared, 7 billion in debt." Goji Yagura turned his face to the side, avoiding Hyojin's angry gaze. Hyojin is now sure that Goji Yagura committed suicide. If he was in Goji Yagura's place, he would also have the thought of committing suicide. As he continued to look at the account book, Hyojin found that more than half of the 7 billion was the compensation for the dead ninjas. Because the Mist Village was in turmoil all year round, the death rate of the Mist ninjas was very high. Therefore, although the amount of compensation for a single person wasn't high, it couldn't be compared to the number of people who received the compensation, so it accumulated to an astronomical figure. Obsidian is too ruthless. Obsidian used all the compensation for the dead ninjas in the Mist Village, and the families of the dead ninjas in the Mist Village didn't receive a single cent. It would be strange if Goji Yagura, the Mizukage of 4 generations, didn't leave his family. This was the land of the Blood Mist, where the strong were respected. If it was any other village, Goji Yagura would have been kicked out of power long ago. Chapter 393. Conan's 600 billion detonation talismans were mostly Kakuzu's hard-earned money, and Obsidian's 100,000 white Zetsu army was probably the Mist pension. Thinking of this, Hyojin felt a headache coming on. He finally understood why the Mist Village's strength didn't change much after Mei took the throne. When the news spread to the 6th Mizukage Choshiro, the Mist Village became a joke. It turned out that obsidian had already destroyed the roots of the Mist Village before May took the throne. After a while, Hyojin said slowly, "Before, I thought that the Mist Village was too funny. The Bloodline clan was destroyed, and the 7 ninja swordsmen ran away, died, and even lost their Jinchuriki. But now I don't think so." Yagura said coldly. "What do you mean?" Kuroto curled his lips and said, "Now I feel that the Mist Village has not disbanded even after reaching this point. Frankly speaking, it's not easy at all. Haha, as expected of one of the 5 great shinobi villages." "You." Yagura's face twitched. Throwing the account book aside, Hyojin said, "With such a big deficit, the daimyo of the Land of Water will definitely not clean up your mess. You are finished." Yagura's face sank. "My current situation is indeed very bad. The voice of opposition in the village is very loud, and I don't have any subordinates I can trust." In the past, Yagura didn't have anyone to talk to about his inner thoughts. After his will was changed by Jishue's Koto Amitsukami and accepted Amitsukami, he could talk to Hyojin and ask for help from Amitsukami. Hyojin put his hand behind his back and strolled around the Mist Secret Technique archive, while saying, "In this situation, normal methods really can't save you. Money won't appear out of thin air, and if the pension can't be paid, the people won't be able to calm down." Coupled with the dark history of being controlled by Amitsukami, even if Yagura tried to persuade them, the Mist ninjas wouldn't trust him anymore. Yagura followed closely behind Hyojin and said, "You said that normal methods can't save me, so there are other methods that can be tried?" Hyojin stopped in front of a secret technique scroll called Steaming Danger Explosion and said casually, "You are still the strongest ninja in the Mist Village. As long as the Mist Village can't leave you, no matter how many mistakes you make, they can be tolerated in front of the survival of the entire village." This danger-vaporizing explosive might secret technique was developed by the second king Yenluo. Other than the second king, Yenluo himself, no one has ever successfully cultivated it. After briefly introducing the secret technique to Hyojin, Yagura asked, "Then how can I make the village inseparable from me?" At present, the next Mizukage chosen by the elders is May. You may not be familiar with her, but she has both lava release and boiling release. She has no shortcomings, and her strength is very strong. She is fully qualified to replace me. Hyojin flipped through the scroll and said lightly, "Then start with her." Yagura was shocked. "What? You want to assassinate her? Why would I assassinate her? She's a good chess piece to deal with Amitsukami." With a smile, Suijin continued, "We just need to let the elders of the Mist Village know that she can't handle the situation on her own. That's enough." Yagura heaved a sigh of relief. At this time, Hyojin was studying the secret technique scroll in his hand. This secret technique is the specialty of the second Mizukage. The second Mizukage finally used this secret technique to perish together with the second Tsuchikage. One must know that the second Tsuchikage has mastered the dust release, which is above the Kikiage. The second Mizukage was able to use the steam release secret technique to force the second Tsuchikage to perish together with the second Tsuchikage, which shows how powerful this secret technique is. Hyojin carefully studied the secret technique steam release, while Yagura, who is the Mizukage of 4 generations, stood beside him like a small follower and didn't disturb him. After a long time, Hyojin said with emotion, "The second Mizukage is not simple." After sighing with emotion, Hyojin directly put the steam release secret technique scroll into the ninja bag on his waist. His action was natural, as if he was taking his own things. Yagura ignored the fact that Hyojin put the secret technique scroll into the ninja bag and asked, "What should we do?" After pondering for a moment, Hyojin said, "Hunting down the 6-tailed Jinchuriki Yugao and bringing the 6-tailed back under your control is the most urgent matter in the Mist Village right now. In this matter, your village elders shouldn't hold you back, so you can send May to form a hunting team to hunt down the 6-tailed Jinchuriki, and then 2 days later." May's eyebrows slightly wrinkled as she walked out of the Mizukage building with a solemn face. Aojirai and other trusted aides immediately greeted her and asked, Why did the four generations summon you? The four generations ordered me to form a hunting team to hunt down the fugitive Yugao. After a pause, Mei said, the four generations also said that if I can successfully complete this task, he will take the initiative to abdicate and give the position of Mizukage to me. That's great. Mei Ming's trusted subordinates immediately burst into cheers. Aojirai frowned. I'm afraid it won't be easy to hunt down Yugao. Mei nodded. Well, I'm not sure that I can defeat him. Mei and Aojirai both understood that the best candidate to hunt down the six-tailed Jinchuriki Yugao was actually the four generations Mizukage. But the four generations Mizukage took this task as a test to see if Mei was qualified to inherit the position of Mizukage. Mei couldn't refuse this task, because if she refused this task, she would lose the qualification to become the Mizukage. She was the only Mizukage candidate who could replace the four generations Mizukage in the village. Once she lost the qualification, no one could replace the four generations Mizukage. Aojirai said, we must set up a trap in advance, and also ask the elders for help from the SEAL class. I also heard that Yugao was seriously injured in the fight with the four generations of Kazekage. As long as we prepare well, it shouldn't be difficult to catch him. Mei's expression gradually became firm, and she said to Aojirai, you go prepare. We'll leave in the afternoon. In Mei's view, the four generations of Kazekage didn't make things too difficult for her, because if she can't even complete this task, then she really doesn't have the qualification to inherit the position of Mizukage. Chapter 394. In the evening fog, a group of black shadows was quietly galloping. The speed of these black shadows was extremely fast. They passed through the rugged and uneven mountain roads without making the slightest sound. They passed through mountains and ridges all the way, like a group of ghosts roaming in the night. They were none other than Mei, who was ordered by Yonde Mizukage to hunt down the six-tailed Jinchuriki. While galloping, Mei Ming looked back at her subordinates behind her. In this operation to capture the six-tailed Jinchuriki, she received strong support from the village elders. In addition to a team of trusted subordinates led by herself, there was also an elite team of the Mist Hidden Unit supported by the elders, as well as an elite sealing team of the Mist Hidden Unit who had experience in sealing tailed beasts. The entire hunting team consisted of 3 squads and 12 ninjas. Among them, only 3 members of the sealing class were chunin. The rest, including the leader of the sealing class, were either jonin or tokubetsu jonin. At this time, Aojirai came over and said to Mei, don't worry, this time we have enough people to complete the task. Mei Ming nodded slightly. Although her expression was a little dignified along the way, there was not much worry in her eyes. Although Yu Gao is strong, he is not a perfect Jinchuriki like Yonde Mizukage, so he will not easily enter the tailed beast state before falling into a life and death situation, because entering the tailed beast state is also a great danger for Yu Gao himself. If he is not careful, his will may be submerged by the will of the six-tailed beast, and he will fall into complete loss of control. At that time, he would either become a walking corpse and become a soulless shell, or he would directly die from going berserk, allowing the six tails to escape from the berserk state. Therefore, as long as Mei grasps the moment of Yu Gao's hesitation and defeats him before he enters the tailed beast state that is difficult to deal with, she can easily complete the task. I hope I don't need to do anything. Mei Ming looked ahead and prayed in her heart. Resolving this matter peacefully wasn't Mei Ming's wishful thinking, because she was a well-known moderate in the Mist Village. Sending her to lead the team to capture Yu Gao meant that the Mist Village wasn't willing to investigate Yu Gao's crime of defecting. After seeing Yu Gao, as long as she clearly explains that the Mizukage of 4 generations is controlled by the Akatsuki organization and pardons Yu Gao's crime of betrayal, the probability of Yu Gao resisting is very low. Soon, the pursuing troops passed through many small islands and arrived at the border of the country of hot water, which was across the sea from the country of water. According to the intelligence, Yu Gao had been wandering around after defecting, and was very likely to be in the country of hot water. Therefore, the first stop of Mei Ming's hunting team was the country of hot water. But just as the pursuing troops entered a mountainous area, Qing, who had white eyes, suddenly stopped. Mei Ming also stopped and asked, "What's wrong?" Qing stared ahead with a solemn expression and shouted, "I found you, come out." Aojirai's shout echoed in the quiet night. All the members of the hunting team were elite ninjas with rich experience, so they immediately formed a defensive formation. At this time, a figure slowly descended from a tree in the distance. This figure was none other than Sui Jin, who was controlling the fire release clone. He was wearing the black cloak of Amatsuki with golden edges and a mask with a flame pattern on his face as he calmly walked towards the mist pursuers. Mei Ming's face sank. "Amatsuki, Homasubi." The corner of Hyojin's mouth slightly rose, and he said with a smile, "I heard that your Mizukage has been controlled by the Akatsuki organization. Is that true?" Mei Ming coldly said, "No comment." Behind her, all the mist ninjas, including Aojirai, had a look of fear on their faces. In the shinobi world, Amatsuki's reputation is not inferior to the Akatsuki organization. Hyojin didn't care and casually said, "The mist has really declined." Mei Ming questioned, "Why did you stop us? What do you want?" "Looking at your hurried appearance, I'm afraid you're going to hunt down the six-tailed Jinchuriki, right?" After a pause, Hyojin said, "Please go back. Amatsuki will accept the six-tailed." Aojirai angrily said, "Are you kidding me? The six-tailed belongs to the mist." Hyojin curled his lips and said, "Even your Mizukage doesn't necessarily belong to the mist. Why are you talking about the ownership of the tailed beast? Get out of here. Don't force me to kill you." Mei Ming stopped Aojirai, who wanted to argue, and said, "It seems that the previous incident with 4 generations made the mist look down on us. Since you are pointing your spear at the six-tailed, then there is nothing to talk about between us." After saying that, Mei Ming quickly made hand seals and shouted, "Lava release, flame ball, shio shio shio." In an instant, fist-sized liquid spheres were spat out of Mei Ming's mouth. These spheres were extremely fast. Like cannonballs, they shot towards Hyojin with a whistling sound. Suijin tilted his head slightly and dodged Mei's lava release by a hair's breadth. Although his mouth was slightly raised, in fact, his eyes under the mask have already been equipped with the eternal Manjiki Sharingan. So the moment Mei Ming launched the lava release ninjutsu, his eternal Manjiki Sharingan immediately captured the flight trajectory of the opponent's lava release ninjutsu. It seemed thrilling, but in fact, he easily avoided the opponent's attack. Puff! The flame ball that was avoided by Hyojin quickly hit a big tree not far behind him. Hiss! The thick and sturdy tree that required 2 to 3 people to stretch out their arms to hug was only slightly grazed by the flame-dissolving bullet, and a violent corroding sound was heard. The part that was grazed by the flame-dissolving bullet was quickly burned and corroded at a speed visible to the naked eye. A large hole was instantly pierced through the tree trunk, and the whole tree fell to the ground. Hyojin was shocked when he saw this. "Hiss! I can't let this thing touch me." At this time, Aojirai on the side also completed hand seals. Mist hidden technique. Huff! As Aojirai spat out a thin mist, in just a few breaths, the valley that was originally filled with some night mist was soon covered by a thick fog that one couldn't see their fingers. At the same time, the mist ninjas who were good at the mist assassination technique dispersed in the thick fog, each looking for a chance to kill. Hyojin didn't dare to be careless, and immediately shouted, "Susunu!" In an instant, a golden light shone in the thick fog. Even with the eternal Manjiki Sharingan, it was difficult for Hyojin to get an advantage in the thick fog and fight with the mist ninjas who were good at the mist assassination technique, even if he had the eternal Manjiki Sharingan. After activating Susunu, Hyojin didn't hesitate. He stared with his left eye and shouted, "Susunu!" Under the effect of the left eye, an armor made of golden flames covered the body of the golden giant, and the golden giant also changed from the previous 2 arms to 4 arms, and even a pair of huge wings spread on its back. Chapter 395. Under the buff of the pupil technique Susu, the complete form Susu, with 4 arms and 2 wings, appeared in this inconspicuous little valley in the country of hot water. Hyojin, who is located in the crystal between Susanu's eyebrows, immediately flapped his wings and flew into the air. With just a simple flap of his wings, the power of the 100-meter-tall Susanu is already comparable to a B-level wind release ninjutsu. Therefore, when the complete Susanu flew into the air, the thick fog that shrouded the small valley had already been blown away by the strong wind caused by the flapping of Susanu's wings. Looking up at the golden giant flying in the air, the people of the Mist hunting team looked at each other. When they encountered Hyojin, they already expected that the enemy would be very difficult to deal with, but they didn't expect it to be this difficult. Damn it! Jirai gritted her teeth. Her face was full of anger and helplessness. Compared to the other people of the Mist Village, Mei's reaction was the calmest. Although she was surprised, she began to silently think about the tactics. As an expert with dual blood succession of lava release and boiling release, Mei Ming didn't have any obvious shortcomings. Even if it was a difficult flying enemy for others, she still had many ways to deal with it. Hyojin in the air didn't enjoy the shocked eyes of the people of the Mist Village below. With the current strength of the Fire Release Avatar, using 2-man GQ Sharingan level jutsu consecutively will put a great burden on his body. Although he is flying in the air majestically like a god. In fact, he already felt a little dizzy, but these abnormalities are not enough to affect the battle for the time being. Knowing that he couldn't delay any longer, Suijin immediately urged Susanu and swung the flame sword towards the mist ninjas in the valley. Boom! 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 The flaming sword, which was dozens of meters long, smashed into the valley, immediately causing an earth-shattering sound, as if the entire earth was trembling. Accompanied by the billowing smoke, countless golden flames scattered like petals, sprinkling all over the valley. In an instant, dazzling golden light bloomed everywhere, illuminating the valley under the night sky. In a trance, it was as if day and night were instantly replaced. The mist ninjas in the valley were all in a sorry state. Fortunately, they are all experienced ninjas. When Jirai used the mist concealment jutsu, they had already used the water clone jutsu to replace their true bodies, and their true bodies were hidden far away in the valley, so Suijin's deliberate attack didn't cause any direct casualties to them. However, they had obviously underestimated the power of Susanu's attack. Even if they were not directly hit, the huge shock caused the blood in their chest to surge. Many unlucky ones were even touched by the golden flame and wailed in pain on the ground. A casual attack has such power. Looking at the almost deformed valley and the terrible golden flames that spread all around, Mei's face was full of bitterness. The strength of the Homisubi in front of her is completely beyond her expectations, which made her fall into despair. After all, she is only 20 years old at this time. Whether it is strength or experience, she is far less than the 5th Mizukage of the 4th Shinobi World War. The rest of the Mist ninjas were even more unbearable. All of their faces were filled with fear, and several people in the SEAL class were even shivering. At this time, Hyojin landed on the ground from the air. The complete Susanu also degenerated into half of its body, and the wings on its back disappeared, leaving only the upper half of its body and 4 arms. The attack just now was actually flashy. It seemed powerful enough to destroy the terrain and even ignite the entire valley, but in fact, the damage to the Mist ninjas was very limited. Except for a few Mist ninjas who were touched by the golden flames. Although the others were very embarrassed, almost no one was injured. But that attack consumed a lot of Hyojin's pupil power and chakra, and just one attack made him gasp for breath. However, this was exactly what he wanted. What he wanted was this kind of crushing feeling that was hard to resist. Under the cover of Susanu's body, Hyojin suppressed the increasingly violent dizziness, suppressed the urge to breathe heavily, and slowly walked towards Mei in the distance, and said without any emotion, "In my eyes, You're just some ants that don't matter to the overall situation. If it weren't for you not knowing what's good for you, I wouldn't even bother to kill you with my own hands." Seeing the insufferably arrogant Homusabi approaching step by step, May gritted her teeth and ordered the subordinates around her. "You guys retreat. I will hold her." Blue said, "Don't be stupid. This woman will not let us go. There is no chance to retreat now." In the face of a strong enemy with the ability to fly, abandoning your companions, abandoning your dignity, and fleeing in panic is no different from courting death. The more experienced a ninja is, the more they understand that in this kind of desperate situation, once they lose the will to fight, they will completely become the prey of the hunter. "Well, let's fight her." May immediately summoned her chakra and quickly made hand seals as if she was going to use some kind of terrifying ninjutsu. Feeling the fierce chakra surging from May, Hyojin's face stiffened under the mask, and he cursed, "Yagura, this idiot, why hasn't he come yet?" Just now, the scene was established, and the invincible image was established, but at the same time, Hyojin's pupil power was seriously consumed, and the physical discomfort was becoming more and more obvious. After all, the eternal Manjiki Sharingan in his eye sockets is not his own. In terms of compatibility, there is still a significant difference compared with Uchiha Madara and Uchiha Sasuke. So when he used the complete Susanoo, his pupil power consumption is also greater than that of Madara and Sasuke. This is why Hyojin rarely uses the complete Susanoo. Most of the time, he only uses half of his body, or even a single arm phantom. One must know that even if Sasuke has Indra's chakra and uses his eternal Manjiki Sharingan to activate the complete form of Susanoo, the burden on Sasuke's body is still enormous. The opposite May, who has the boiling release Kekiai Genkai, once used boiling release to melt Sasuke's Susanoo in the original space and time, so when facing May, the defense of Susanoo is not invulnerable. "You guys go back, I will deal with her." Just when Hyojin was in a dilemma, a cold voice echoed in the valley. Chapter 396, March 24th, 2019. This is a day worthy of my remembrance. Thank you to the editor, Wakabe-san, for sparing no effort in recommending and supporting me, so that more readers can discover this book and like it. Thank you to all my readers for your subscriptions, your tips, your recommendation votes, and your monthly votes for your support. It's all these subscriptions, reward after reward, recommendation after recommendation, monthly votes. That's why this Tenseigan has made it all the way to today, to the front page. This is an honor worthy of commemoration for a small writer, and this honor cannot go unnoticed by my readers. Here, I share this honor with my readers, and once again, thank you for your silent dedication and support. In the days to come, I will be more serious about the plot and strive to contribute a better story for everyone, so that everyone can reap a unique joy from this Tenseigan in their spare time. Also, I have a small request. I hope that everyone can support the original version. Subscription is crucial to a web novel. It's related to the promotion and development of the book, and it's also directly related to the living expenses of a novelist like me. A chapter subscription is actually only a few cents. The cost of 10 days might not even be the price of a bottle of drink. I hope that my readers who can afford to support the original version as much as possible. Chapter 397. That cold voice reverberated in the valley. For a moment, the gazes of both parties were attracted to it. The mist ninjas led by May looked towards the source of the voice and found that 4 generations Mizuki Jigura was standing quietly on the edge of a towering cliff in the valley with his arms crossed. His face was slightly raised, and his eyes were looking down at the valley indifferently. Although his expression was dull, and there was almost no expression on his face, just standing there made the mist ninjas feel a sense of confidence for no reason, as if they had found their backbone. Mizuki-sama. The mist ninjas who were used to calling Yagura as Yandame-sama unconsciously called him Mizuki-sama, which was obviously a sign of respect for him. Suijin, who was under the Susanoo, also heaved a sigh of relief. If Yagura was half a step late, the invincible image he had painstakingly created would have been in vain. With his current eyesight, it was difficult for him to maintain his previous attack. Once he fought with Mei, he would be exposed immediately. Although he could protect himself, Mei would find that he was not as strong as he had shown before. Everything before was just a bluff. In this way, Mei would be suspicious of Hyojin's intentions. After all, no normal ninja would waste their own chakra just to create a big scene. At this time, Yagura looked down at Hyojin in the valley and said lightly, "I will be your opponent." The fourth Mizukage, Kuroto snorted and said, "Not a bad opponent. I hope you can entertain me to my heart's content." Yagura jumped down from the cliff and landed steadily on the ground. Then he slowly walked towards Hyojin. He was calm, as if he was not affected by Hyojin's huge golden Susanoo at all. His indifferent expression was filled with inexplicable confidence. Seeing this, Kuroto secretly laughed and said, "It's quite like that." It seems that the previous rehearsals were not in vain. Under the influence of Yagura, the mist ninjas who were still panicking slightly calmed down. Mei even went to greet Yagura. "Mizukage-sama, why are you here?" Yagura replied lightly, "Hunting down Yugao is related to the safety of the entire Mist Village. Although I gave this task to you as a test, it is not just a test." Mei heard this, and her expression became gloomy. The meaning of Yagura's words was obvious. If Mei failed the test, then, as the fourth Mizukage, he could only do it himself. But now that he took the initiative to appear, it undoubtedly meant that Mei failed the test, so he had to clean up the mess in front of him personally. Mei quickly put aside her personal honor and reported to Yagura, "Mizukage-sama, Amatsukumi's target is the Six Tails. We must stop them." "Got it." Yagura waved his hand and said, "You can leave now. This level of battle is not something you can interfere with." "Yes." Mei Ming bit her lips and nodded reluctantly. She understood very well that if the four generations Mizukage wanted to defeat the Homusubi of Amatsukumi, they must enter the tailed beast state. At that time, it would be a battle between two monsters. If they didn't retreat far, even a Jonin would be injured or killed. Moreover, if the mist ninjas stayed in the valley, it would distract the four generations Mizukage, and they would not be able to fight the Homusubi of Amatsukumi with all their strength. Mei didn't dare to hesitate and immediately ordered her subordinates, "Quick, let's get out of the valley." Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. After using the sealing technique to heal the companions who were burned by Suijin's golden flames, the members of the Mist Hunting Unit used the body flicker technique and withdrew from the valley. Seeing that the Mist ninjas left the valley, Hyojin grinned. "Let's begin." Yagura nodded. Outside the valley, the Mist ninjas who hurriedly left the valley stopped outside the entrance. One of the Mist ninjas panted and said, "It should be fine now that we've retreated here, right?" "Maybe." Mei wasn't sure how fierce the battle between the four generations Mizukage and the Homusubi would be. Aojirai slightly calmed down and immediately used the Byakugan to observe the situation in the valley. However, as soon as he looked over, his face was full of shock. At this moment, in his vision of the Byakugan, the violent chakra reaction covered the entire valley. This was the first time he saw such a fierce chakra reaction after transplanting the Byakugan. Boom! Suddenly, a dazzling light flashed in the valley, followed by a deafening explosion in the valley. Immediately afterward, a violent tremor spread out from the valley, causing the people of Hidden Mist Village standing at the entrance to stagger and almost fall to the ground. A young Umbu in the hunting team was shocked. What's going on?" The leader of the sealing class, who had the experience of sealing tailed beasts, wiped the sweat on his forehead. "It seems to be the Mizukage Jade of the tailed beast." At this time, another Umbu in the Mist Ninja pointed to the sky. "Look!" Everyone followed the voice and saw a mushroom-shaped cloud of dust surging over the valley. Boom, boom, boom. The explosions continued, and the ground continued to tremble. The cliffs on both sides of the valley kept collapsing under the waves of tremors, and many places lost their original appearance. The steep cliffs collapsed into a gentle slope with rolling gravel. This, Mei Ming was shocked. Looking at the commotion, she couldn't imagine how intense the battle in the valley was. Swallowing her saliva, she turned her head with difficulty and asked Green next to her, "How's the situation?" Green murmured, "Situation, situation." At this time, in his vision of the Byakugan, two huge chakra reactions filled the entire valley. They were so dense that they seemed to have substance, completely covering the chakra reactions in the meridians of the 4 generations Mizukage and the Fire Demon. So, with the Byakugan, he could only see 2 huge chakra reactions intertwined, but couldn't see the specific situation of the battle. Mei Ming said anxiously, "How is it? Tell me." It seemed that Green couldn't find the right words to describe what he saw, so he repeated, "Monster, it's a monster." Mei Ming became more anxious. "Who has the upper hand?" Green shook his head. "I can't tell at the moment." Mei Ming hurriedly looked at the leader of the sealing class on the other side. The leader of the sealing class was not only good at all kinds of sealing techniques, but also good at perceptual ninjutsu. He could lock onto the target's chakra reaction from a very long distance. Seeing Mei Ming looking at him, the leader of the sealing class had a bitter expression. This is the first time I've seen this." Chapter 398. Before the SEAL class leader's voice died away, boom, another deafening explosion sounded in the ears of the mist ninjas. A jade-tail beast shot towards the entrance of the valley, leaving a deep mark on the ground along the way. Everything in its path was a mess, and it finally smashed into a broken wall at the entrance of the valley, completely collapsing the side of the entrance. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Countless broken stones flew like raindrops, whistling and splashing in all directions. Each of these rubble had sharp edges and corners, and the force of the impact was great. Their power was similar to a shuriken hidden weapon, exploding in an overwhelming manner, causing the mist ninjas standing at the entrance of the valley to suffer. For Mei, Aojirai, and the other jonin with rich experience, they easily avoided most of the rubble by relying on their body's instinct. Although there were occasional scratches, it wasn't life-threatening. However, the members of the SEAL class who rarely fought on the front line were unlucky. One of them was directly hit in the forehead by a rubble and instantly fell to the ground, no longer breathing. Aojirai shouted, "Retreat, it's not safe here." A trace of hesitation flashed on Mei's face. Although 4 generations Mizukage ordered them to retreat far away, this battle is about the survival of the Mist Village. If 4 generations Mizukage dies, then the reputation of the Mist Village as one of the 5 great shinobi villages will really fall into the mud. Seeing Mei's hesitation, Aojirai grabbed her and said, "If 4 generations Mizukage is defeated, then you will be the last hope of the Mist Village." Looking at the flashing flames in the distance and the rising smoke, Mei Ming's hesitation gradually disappeared and was replaced by determination and firmness. She took a deep breath and said to Aojirai, "You retreat, I want to stay here." Aojirai said in a deep voice, "In this situation, we are of no use. It's meaningless for you to stay here. If 4 generations Mizukage is defeated by Amatsukumi's Homusubi, you won't even have the chance to escape." Mei said slowly, "If 4 generations Mizukage is defeated today, then the Mist Village is finished. No one in the village can resist Amatsukumi and Akatsuki." Ching Chong let out a long sigh. "All right, I'll stay behind to accompany you." The Umbu members of the Mist Village also expressed their willingness to stay. At this time, they didn't consume much of chakra. Except for a few who were injured, the others didn't lose much of their combat power. Just now, it was mainly because the complete Susanoo was too fierce and destroyed their will to fight. Now that the Mizukage was fighting desperately in the valley, and the situation seemed to be in a stalemate, it didn't seem that he was obviously at a disadvantage. So their fighting spirit rose a little bit. Seeing this scene, Mei nodded with relief and ordered, The wounded and the SEAL team retreat. The rest of you get ready to enter the valley with me to support Mizuki-sama. In the valley, Hyojin and Yagura stood back to back, releasing chakra in all directions. In terms of destroying the terrain and releasing chakra, his human pillar strength was not inferior to anyone. And the two people in the valley were both human pillar forces. Yagura, who had entered the tailed beast state, shot the tailed beast jades like they were free. One after another, the rocks on both sides of the valley were smashed into pieces. And Hyojin also released the seal of the gourd artifact on his waist and released the dragon vein. The dragon vein can also release a kind of attack similar to the jade-tail beasts, but it's not the real jade-tail beasts, but a kind of dragon vein chakra bomb compressed to the extreme. In theory, the power of the Ryumyaka chakra bomb should be far inferior to that of the Bijou Jade, but because the Ryumyaka chakra contains a large proportion of nature's chakra, so the Ryumyaka chakra bomb may not be inferior to the Bijou Jade. Yagura, while shooting the jade-tail beasts, asked Hyojin next to him, "Ching won't see any clues, right? He has a Byakugan on him." Hyojin smiled slightly. "Don't worry. As a member of the Hyuga clan, Hyojin is very clear about the characteristics of the Byakugan. If the chakra source's chakra is too large and in an explosive state, then the chakra source in the Byakugan's field of vision will be like a burning fire, and the chakra in the chakra source's meridians will be like a flame, merging into the raging fire, unable to distinguish carefully. Therefore, when the chakra of the three tails and dragon vein is in a violent explosive state, then the chakra reaction of Hyojin and Yagura will merge into it. In the case of vision being blocked and the distance being relatively far, even if Ching has a Byakugan, it will be difficult to see the situation in the valley through X-ray vision. As for the Byakugan on Ching's body, Hyojin did think about retrieving it before sneaking into the Mist Village. But now that he has mastered the 4 generations Mizuki Jigura through Kodo Amagami, it is not convenient to retrieve the Byakugan, because once he attacks Ching and takes back the Byakugan, the Mist Village will analyze his purpose of seizing the Byakugan, and then think about whether the 4 generations Mizukage will be controlled by the Genjutsu again, and then suspect Yagura. After venting for a while, Hyojin said, "It should be fine." Yagura also took a deep breath. Yeah. At this moment, the valley has been completely reduced to ruins. Acting to this point is enough, and Hyojin can't release the dragon vein for a long time. That will increase the probability of the dragon vein going berserk. After all, the shell of the dragon vein is made of purple clay, and its strength is limited. If the dragon vein chakra is in an explosive state for a long time, the shell of the purple clay is likely to collapse due to overload. Hyojin then said, "The organization can only help you this much. The rest is up to you." Yagura gently nodded. After this battle, the elders in the village should calm down a bit. Hyojin then said, "Capture the 6-tailed Jinchuriki as soon as possible. He is likely to become a target of the Akatsuki organization. And if you can capture him yourself, it will be good for you to stabilize your position as the Mizukage." As soon as he heard the words Akatsuki organization, Yagura's face sank. "I will catch him as soon as possible, but how should I deal with him?" Hyojin pondered for a moment, recalling the battle between Yu Gao and the 4 generations of Kazekage. According to the conclusion of the intelligence team, the reason why the 4 generations of Kazekage lost an arm has nothing to do with the watermelon mountain pufferfish. It's all because after Yu Gao suddenly transformed into a tail beast, he used the unique secret technique Leech Space to break through the golden sand defense of the 4 generations of Kazekage using the corrosive chakra coat, and instantly tore off one of the arms of the 4 generations of Kazekage. Although this attack was a sneak attack, if Yugao tore off the head of the 4 generations of Kazekage, then the 4 generations of Kazekage would have died a long time ago. Therefore, although Yugao didn't have the perfect Jinchuriki, his combat power is still very high. In a desperate situation, even a Kage can be killed by him if they are not careful. After thinking for a moment, Hyojin said, "Keep him. Maybe he will be useful in the future." Chapter 399. Seal. After sealing the plump, ball-shaped purple dragon into the gourd magical artifact at his waist, Kuroto heaved a long sigh of relief. If he was controlling the main body, Hyojin wouldn't be too worried about the dragon vein going berserk, but he was controlling the fire clone, and his pupil power was greatly damaged, so he couldn't help but worry. Yagura stared at the fat dragon's vein that was slowly becoming smaller and finally disappearing into the gourd magic tool. Yagura's face revealed a serious expression as he muttered, "This shape, could it be that it has some special use?" Suejin's face darkened. He pretended not to hear Yagura's mutterings. Then he took out a scroll from his ninja bag and threw it to Yagura. "This is the list of materials that the organization needs. Try to help me gather them as much as possible." Taking a look at the scroll, Yagura found a long list of instruments and materials, many of which he had never even heard of, and his face darkened. "I'll try my best." Hyojin nodded. He didn't expect Yagura to help him purchase a full set of experimental instruments. After all, such a large-scale purchase, even Mai, who is relatively rich, would be very difficult. At this time, light footsteps could be heard from afar. Hyojin and Yagura looked at each other, then immediately retreated and confronted each other from a distance. At this time, not only had the terrain of the valley changed completely, the entire valley was also shrouded in a thick layer of dust, making it difficult to see beyond 3 to 5 meters. Therefore, after hearing that the rumbling in the valley had stopped, although May and the others decided to explore the valley, they did not directly barge into the valley. Instead, they carefully explored the valley bit by bit. Azura's Vikugan came in handy at this time. He looked at the center of the valley and said, 4 generations and Homisubi seem to be confronting each other. May asked in a low voice, "What's the situation?" Green shook his head and said, "It's hard to tell. The chakra on both sides is very strong, and there's no sign of exhaustion. In comparison, 4 generations is obviously better in terms of chakra." Hearing this, Mei Ming no longer hesitated and immediately said, "Let's go." Swish, swish, swish. Soon, Mei and the others landed beside Yagura. Seeing that the audience has arrived, Hyojin coldly said, "As expected of the Mizukage, I will remember today's account." Yagura propped his hook on the ground. "Susanoo is indeed extraordinary, but if it wasn't for a sneak attack, even the Manjikyu Sharingan wouldn't be able to do anything to me." Don't get cocky. It's still hard to say who'll get six-tailed. After a round of compliments, Hyojin did not stay any longer. His figure flashed and disappeared on the spot. Seeing Hyojin take the initiative to retreat, Mei immediately chased after him. Yagura immediately said, "Don't chase." Mei Ming asked in confusion, "Mizukage-sama, why don't you chase after her? It wasn't easy for you to defeat her. This is the best time to get rid of her completely. Our primary enemy is the Akatsuki." After a pause, Yagura continued, "Let's go and capture Yugao." After quickly escaping from the valley, Hyojin quickly met up with 3 generations Kazekage puppets who were responsible for picking him up. Then, with the help of the flying ability of 3 generations Kazekage puppets, he quietly returned to the Sky Fortress not far from the coastline of the Land of Water. As soon as he returned to the Sky Fortress, he couldn't wait to go to the practice field. After 2 fierce battles with Obito and the Mist Village's hunting team, his fire-release doppelganger's compatibility with his soul was getting higher and higher, basically reaching the standard line. But this is not the reason why he rushed to the practice field. The reason why he rushed to the practice field is because he faintly found that his mastery of flame release has improved significantly. Especially during the battle in the valley, he used flame release to cover almost the entire valley with golden flames. But the consumption of pupil power and chakra was significantly less than he expected. And this change undoubtedly shows that his mastery of flame release has improved significantly. In just a few days, why is there such an obvious improvement? Standing in the practice field, Kuroto began to ponder secretly. The improvement of his mastery of flame release should be related to the battle with Obsidian. After all, the battle in the valley was more of a performance. It didn't involve life and death. Hyojin rubbed his chin. When I fought with Obsidian, did I do anything special? After recalling for a while, Hyojin found that when he fought with Obsidian, the special thing he did was to use 3-man GQ Sharingan class jutsu, Susanoo, Amano Iwado, and Susanoo. But the use of these jutsu should not have much to do with the improvement of flame release. Suddenly, Hyojin's eyes narrowed and thought to himself, is it because I overused my pupil jutsu? If we exclude the special of using 3-man GQ Sharingan class jutsu in a row, then the special of the battle between Hyojin and Obsidian is that he overused his pupil jutsu. Yes, at the last moment when I overused my pupil jutsu, I also used a large-scale flame release ninjutsu. Perhaps this is a reason why my mastery of flame release has improved significantly. This is not Hyojin's guess, but he thought of Sasuke. Because in the original story, Sasuke often fought with strong enemies, which led to the exhaustion of his pupil jutsu. It can be said that Sasuke is the one in the Uchiha clan who had the shortest time between awakening his Manjikyu Sharingan and the decline of his eyesight. It only took him a few battles to almost blind his newly obtained Manjikyu Sharingan. Perhaps it is for this reason that Sasuke mastered flame release in a very short time. And in the past practice of flame release, Hyojin will not let himself fall into the predicament of exhaustion of pupil jutsu. Often when the consumption of pupil jutsu reaches a certain level, he will take the initiative to rest, so he has never tried to practice flame release in the case of exhaustion of pupil jutsu. But the battle with Obsidian was a life and death battle. If there is a slight negligence, it is possible to completely lose the fire release clone with the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan. Therefore, Hyojin did not hold back in that battle. Even when his pupil jutsu was exhausted, in order to kill Obsidian for the second time, he resolutely overused his pupil jutsu and used a large-scale flame release ninjutsu. This situation is undoubtedly an accident with a small probability, but this accident pointed out a way for Hyojin to practice flame release. Anyway, I have consumed a lot of pupil jutsu, so I might as well take this opportunity to verify it. If this method works, then there will be no obstacle in practicing flame release. Chapter 400. Huff, huff. Lying on the ground, Hyojin's chest was like a bellows, moving up and down violently. Sweat had soaked his long hair and clothes, making him look like he had just been fished out of the water. Although he was drowned in exhaustion and powerlessness, there was a faint smile on his face. After trying out, just now, he found that his previous speculation was correct. In a situation where the ocular power was exhausted, if he forcefully used flame release, then the hidden potential in the body would be forcibly dug out, so that the body would actively adapt to the change of the fire attribute chakra and the thunder attribute chakra of the flame release, thus improving the control of flame release. In short, just like long-term training can obtain muscle memory, using flame release in an extreme state can also obtain a kind of body memory. Of course, the premise is that one must have the bloodline of the Uchiha clan and must have the ocular power of the Manjikyu Sharingan level. And such a reckless method would naturally cause damage to the body. But compared to the effect, this degree of damage was completely acceptable. After all, the body's mastery of the change of the nature of chakra would only improve, not degenerate. So as long as the frequency of practice was controlled and the body had enough time to recover from the damage caused by the practice, mastering flame release was only a matter of time. Sitting up slowly, Hyojin thought, the Uchiha clan is really interesting. For ordinary people, extreme personality or physical state were very dangerous and should be avoided at all costs. But the Uchiha clan with the Sharingan was the opposite. Extreme personality or physical state could often trigger the power hidden in the bloodline, allowing them to easily obtain a terrifying power that ordinary people could not obtain in their lifetime. The more extreme, the stronger, and the stronger, the more extreme. With the in-depth development of the fire escape doppelganger, Hyojin also had a deeper understanding of the Uchiha clan. In fact, according to the proportion of the whole Uchiha clan, there aren't many crazy people who are so extreme that they can't be communicated with. It's just that the crazy people of the Uchiha clan are all top experts, and they can stir up trouble in the shinobi world at will. They always appear in the spotlight and in the eyes of the public. Obviously, there are only a few of them, but they have led people's perception of the Uchiha clan as a whole. But in fact, most of the people in the Uchiha clan are normal people. They're not ninjas. They have not awakened their Sharingan. They live an ordinary life like ordinary people. Perhaps it was because they were too normal, too ordinary. They had no strength and no right to speak, so they were reduced to the background and ignored by the public. But according to the proportion of the population, these ordinary Uchiha were the majority of the Uchiha clan. After a little sigh, Hyojin left the practice room and went to the laboratory. Then he extracted the soul from the fire escape doppelganger and returned to his body. Placing the fire escape doppelganger on the test bench, Hyojin activated the Byakugan and carefully examined it. Soon, he found that the previous practice did cause a lot of damage to the meridians of the fire escape doppelganger, but these damage are not irreversible and permanent. According to his experience, if the fire escape doppelganger is soaked in a nutrient solution, it will completely recover in a week at most. After recalculating the various data of the fire escape doppelganger and recording them one by one, Hyojin immediately took off the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan from the eye sockets of the fire escape doppelganger and put it into a small storage tank that he carried with him. Then he put the fire escape doppelganger into a large nutrient tank and left the Sky Fortress. Half a day later, Hyojin met up with his subordinates of the 7th Squad on the eastern coastline of the Land of Fire. Seeing that Kuroto came back safe and sound, Kurenai and the other two heaved a long sigh of relief. For them, the past few days have been too torturous. After a few words of greeting, Kurenai immediately asked, "Kuroto, did you succeed?" Hyojin shook his head. Gale coughed twice and said, "Captain, the failure of this mission is our responsibility. It has nothing to do with you." Kurenai lowered her head and said, "Well, it was us who dragged you down." Kurenai also echoed, "Captain, don't worry. We will take the initiative to report to Naruto-sama." Hyojin smiled and said, "There are some changes in this mission. Let's talk about it on the way." On the way back to the village, Hyojin briefly explained what happened in the Mist Village, but in the end he concealed the fact that he secretly controlled the 4 Generations Mizukage. After learning that the 4 Generations Mizukage was controlled by the Akatsuki and became a puppet of the Akatsuki organization, the 3 members of the 7th Squad were shocked, just like Jishui. After the shock, Kurenai said, "Naruto-sama ordered us to assassinate the 4 Generations Mizukage who may have colluded with the Akatsuki organization. Now that it has been confirmed that the 4 Generations Mizukage was only plotted against by the Akatsuki organization and not colluding with the Akatsuki organization, can we cancel this mission?" Hyojin smiled and said, "Yes. For an Umbun ninja, failure in a mission will not only leave a disgraceful mark on their resume, but also, depending on the consequences of the mission failure, they will also be punished to different degrees. If the route was controlled by the Danzo before, there is even a possibility of being executed after the mission failure. Therefore, except for Hyojin, who didn't take the mission failure too seriously, the other members of the 7th Squad were actually a little anxious. A few days later, the 7th Squad returned to the village. As the captain of the 7th Squad, Hyojin immediately went to Naruto's office and reported to the 3 Generations Naruto about what happened in the Mist Village. After listening to Hyojin's report, the 3 Generations frowned and silently smoked the tobacco pipe without saying anything for a long time. Hyojin then reported, 4 Generations Mizukage got rid of the Akatsuki organization's control this time, so they will definitely hate the Akatsuki organization, so I chose to give up the mission. Your decision is correct." After nodding, the 3 Generations shinobi stared at Hyojin and asked, "With the current situation of the Mist Village, do you think the 4 Generations Mizukage can continue to be the Mizukage?" Hyojin shook his head. "This subordinate can't judge." The 3 Generations shinobi said with some tiredness, You've worked hard. Go back and rest. Hyojin no longer said anything and quietly left the Naruto's office. Walking out of the Naruto building, Hyojin pondered for a moment, then immediately went to the Uchiha clan. After arriving at Jishue's house, Hyojin confirmed that no one was around and said to Jishue, I still need a day or two to deal with the matters at hand and the transplant equipment. I can start the operation in 2 days. Jishue took a deep breath. I have applied for a month's leave from Naruto-sama with the excuse of physical discomfort, so I can receive the transplant operation at any time during this month. Because in the previous battle, almost all of the members of the Akatsuki organization were injured, and Kakuzu, who lost 4 hearts in the battle, teamed up with the Jinchuriki Nibi, who was controlled by Obsidian Jinjutsu, and left the secret base of the Akatsuki organization to carry out the heart-hunting mission. Although Kakuzu only has 1 heart left, and his combat power is greatly reduced, the strength of the Jinchuriki Nibi is unquestionable. Even if it's hunting a Jonin, it's not difficult, so the hunting mission was very smooth, and Kakuzu didn't spend much effort to collect 5 hearts. However, just when Kakuzu and Yujito Nibi were about to return to the secret base of the Akatsuki organization, the Jinjutsu that Obsidian used to control Yujito Nibi suddenly disappeared, and Yujito Nibi also got rid of the Jinjutsu without any warning. Kakuzu, who was defenseless, was naturally unlucky. The proud Yujito Nibi couldn't bear the shame of being controlled by the Jinjutsu, so she didn't escape, but vented her anger on Kakuzu. Kakuzu was stunned on the spot, and the heart that he just obtained was lost again. When Shinichi and Konan heard the news and arrived, and joined forces to subdue Yujito Nibi again, Kakuzu's whole body was broken into pieces, and the scene was extremely miserable. Fortunately, Kakuzu's earth attribute heart was buried into the ground first, so he barely escaped death. After that, it took him a whole night to piece his body back together.